Chapter 2402. These 10 over black-robed men's abilities were all around the earth profound realm. Yi-Ching Luo swiftly retreated a few steps. Her gaze swept across the surrounding 10 over black-robed men. From their dressing, Yi-Ching Luo couldn't tell if they were from the Battle King's manor or the Miao tribe. But Yi-Ching Luo knew. In order to kill her or capture her, the other party had really put in a lot of effort. If it was anyone else. These 10 over Earth profound realm black-robed men made their move. Who else would be able to escape? Seeing Yi-Ching Luo evading their attacks, the other 10 over black-robed men swiftly pounced forward. Momentarily, the entire forest shook violently. A strong gust of wind blew and leaves fluttered. Indistinctly, there were mournful cries. In just a moment, the forest gradually regained its original quietness. The powerful xian waves in the surroundings also gradually subsided. Yi-Ching Luo dusted her hands and stepped on one of the black-robed men. Kitty Li bent down and forcefully tore off the mask of one of the black-robed men. That black-robed man's face was filled with bloody scratches. This was Kitty Li's masterpiece. Who asked these baddies to disturb her and her sister's interest in shopping? If it weren't for them, she would still be happily shopping with her elder sister. She didn't scratch them to death. That was considered as showing mercy. Yi-Ching Luo lifted her leg and kicked the black-robed man. The black-clothed man who attacked her earlier dropped a token. Kitty Li immediately picked up that token. On the token, there was a huge symbol, battle. Assassin sent by the Battle King's manor. Although the 10 over black-robed men were brutally tortured by Yi-Ching Luo, they were unable to resist. But their imposing manner had not diminished. A pair of vengeful eyes seemed to be telling her that they would rather die than submit. Yi-Ching Luo's brows rose as she nodded in understanding. You are the soldiers under General Battle King. Only soldiers had such an unyielding spirit. Those black-robed men were slightly stunned, as though they didn't expect Yi-Ching Luo to see through their identities. Very quickly, one of the black-robed men shouted sternly, "We have nothing to do with the general. Kill us if you want, but don't casually give us identities." Yi-Ching Luo couldn't help but laughed out when she heard that. This black-clothed man must be joking, right? Denying the relationship. Was there anyone who would deny it with such a straight face? That, general, wasn't it a blatant admission that he was a soldier of the War King General? Calling off the search for me, then sending his own soldiers to hunt me down. This is the War King's goal. Yi-Ching Luo raised her brows, but just based on these small fries, like you won't be able to satisfy me, I think. It's better to let the Battle King do it himself. You. The black-clothed men looked ferocious. Some of them were so angry that they coughed violently. They had their own pride and self-respect. His skills were inferior, and he was tortured by a young girl. It was already the most shameful thing in their lives. And now, he was even insulted by that young lady. Kill us if you dare. Judging from your young age, I'm afraid you haven't seen a dead person before. What's wrong? You're just talking big. Kill us. The black-robed men flew into a rage out of humiliation and ridiculed Yi-Ching Luo. They didn't believe that this innocent and harmless-looking young lady dared to kill them. Sister, why would anyone want to die so badly? Kitty Li looked strangely at those black-robed men and asked. Chapter 2403. Then should we grant them their wish? Kitty Li blinked her eyes. Since they want to die so badly, and your sister is such a kind person, naturally we should grant them their wish. Yi-Ching Luo smiled as she looked at the black-robed men lying on the ground. Don't say I didn't give you a chance to live, it's you who strongly requested to die. The black-robed men revealed their disdain. They couldn't believe that this beautiful girl, who was only 14 or 15 years old, would dare to kill more than a dozen men like them. Moreover, the young lady wanted to kill them. That would depend on whether she still had the chance. Just at this moment, a rustling sound was heard from the bushes in the forest. Yiqing Luo was on high alert as her gaze swept across the surroundings. The dense grass swayed non-stop, and the rustling sound was getting closer and closer. There was something in the bushes. One of the black-robed men heard the sound. His face immediately revealed a complacent expression. Yiqing Luo's heart jumped and immediately released her perception. This group of black-robed men still had a backup plan. This was really a big move. From the looks of it, the War King was determined to make her surrender. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as a cold glint flashed past her eyes. Rustle, rustle, rustle. Rustle, rustle, rustle. After a while, in the rustling sound, she saw one after another poisonous snakes spitting out blood with their scarlet tongues scurrying out. Densely packed poisonous snakes, some were huge, some were small. They were entangled together and wriggling continuously. This scene, even Yiqing Luo couldn't help but felt her scalp go numb. The poisonous snakes directly ignored those black-robed men lying on the ground and rushed towards Yiqing Luo one by one. Very quickly, with Yiqing Luo as the center, they surrounded her from all directions. The scarlet tongues made a hissing sound. Ha ha ha. Young lady, you're still too inexperienced. The black-robed men saw the poisonous snakes had surrounded Yiqing Luo and Kitty Li. They also forced themselves to stand up. It was all thanks to these two ignorant young ladies. They didn't choose any place. They just had to come to this deserted forest. Just right for them. To have the chance to attract the poisonous snakes. Battle King had said that this young lady was very sinister and cunning. Moreover, he was an expert in using poison. Naturally, they would have two backup plans. Snake. There are so many snakes, sister. Kitty Li couldn't help but feel goosebumps all over her body when she saw the coiled snakes. Kitty Li was not afraid of snakes. However, it was too disgusting to face so many snakes. Yiqing Luo's expression congealed slightly as a cold glint shot out from her charming eyes. Don't move. Kitty Li shrunk beside Yiqing Luo as her sparkling eyes stared vigilantly at those venomous snakes. Ha ha ha. Little girl, do you think that if you don't move, these poisonous snakes won't attack you? No matter how strong you are, what can you do in the face of thousands of poisonous snakes? A man in black rubbed his chest and stood up shakily. Kitty Li grabbed Yiqing Luo's arm as she pursed her lips tightly. Sister, why, they weren't affected by the venomous snakes. Not only was he not affected by the venomous snake, the venomous snakes had bypassed the men in black and were creeping towards them one after another. They have purposely brought scented sachets to ward off poisonous snakes. No wonder Yiqing Luo had always felt that there was a strange smell on those black-robed men. Presumably, it was to disperse these venomous snakes. She chose this forest. It was to prevent alerting the snakes. Chapter 2404. Kitty Li's eyes widened. Then what should we do? Yiqing Luo's eyes sunk slightly as her gaze swept past those 10 over black-robed men. He was deep in thought. It was not realistic to kill these poisonous snakes. After all, there were at least a few thousand of them in front of him. If he made a move, these venomous snakes would definitely gang up on him. Yiqing Luo was not afraid of the venom. However, it didn't mean that Kitty Li wasn't afraid. Moreover, these thousands of snakes all had different poisons. If he was corroded by the venom, she was also unable to find the corresponding antidote in the shortest time possible. He couldn't take that risk. Little girl, you still want to struggle? The black-robed men looked at the two young ladies who were surrounded by the venomous snakes. Earlier they who had their pride abused by Yiqing Luo finally had the feeling of exaltation. Yiqing Luo's eyes narrowed slightly, like a poisonous snake's eyes, staring at those black-robed men without blinking. The corners of her mouth curled up into an extremely enchanting cold arc. This smile. The black-clothed men felt their hairs stand on end. You can't wait to kill me. The War King is rather impatient. Yiqing Luo smiled calmly, but if I were to die, then no one would be able to cure eldest young Miss Miao's poison. Eldest young Miss Miao. The black-robed men were stunned, not understanding why Yiqing Luo would drag Miao Rongrong into this. Yiqing Luo raised her brows. You still don't know. Your family's little prince was poisoned. Miss Miao used a goo worm to cure the little prince, but she was infected with the residual poison. That was to say, Miss Miao was poisoned because of the young prince. If young Miss Miao's poison flared up, they would definitely blame it on the Battle King's mansion. The black-robed men understood the meaning behind Yiqing Luo's words. They frowned slightly. Stop spouting nonsense. These poisonous snakes are not under our control. No matter how glib your tongue is, today, as long as we bring your corpse back, our mission will be completed. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but laugh. The IQ of these people, she really did not want to complain anymore. It was already a miracle that he could survive until now on the battlefield. Now Yiqing Luo was completely certain. These people were sent by the War King's mansion. Moreover, from the looks of it, the Battle King General was determined to kill her to avenge Yuan Kuang. Yiqing Luo took a look at the surrounding venomous snakes as her gaze swiftly swept across the surrounding terrain. If he wanted to use the terrain to deal with these venomous snakes, Yiqing Luo took a look at Kitty Li beside her. Her fingers tightened. Let Kitty Li escape from the venomous snakes first. With a flick of her fingers, a feather fan that looked like a blazing flame appeared at her fingertips. Sister! Kitty Li cried out in shock when she saw Yiqing Luo taking out the glower flame fan. He came to the northern wave continent in order to conceal his identity. Yiqing Luo had kept the glower flame fan all along. After all, the symbol of the red feather fan was too obvious. Do you still remember the footwork that sister taught you? Yiqing Luo lowered her voice and asked. Kitty Li seemed to have reacted to Yiqing Luo's plan as she hurriedly shook her head. I can't let sister deal with those poisonous snakes alone. I'm not afraid of snakes. The venom of these snakes doesn't work on me, but it doesn't mean that it won't work on you. Leave this place first. Only then can I go all out. Yiqing Luo rubbed her little head. Be good, trust me. Kitty Li wanted to say something. But seeing Yiqing Luo's resolute gaze and unquestionable tone, she swallowed her words back and spat out 4 words, I know. Star. Chapter 2405. Yiqing Luo's fingertips moved as the glower flame fan in her hands opened up. A burst of majestic profound energy was unleashed from her body. This powerful profound energy. It made those black-robed men's expressions change drastically. Thousands of poisonous snakes, under this powerful atmosphere, wriggled restlessly. Several poisonous snakes flicked their scarlet tongues, as though they were preparing to attack Yiqing Luo together. Suddenly, a green figure swept past. A thick palm pressed on Yiqing Luo's wrist, which was holding the glower flame fan, forcefully forcing back all her profound energy. Yiqing Luo was shocked. That man had already thrown something towards the direction of the poisonous snakes. Hiss hiss hiss. The poisonous snakes suddenly twisted in extreme pain, as they kept on wriggling. After a while, as though they were escaping for their lives, they scuttled towards the surrounding bushes, leaving this place. In just a moment, the forest full of venomous snakes and murderous aura a moment ago was now completely empty. The black-robed men were stunned. Yiqing Luo was also stunned. She stared blankly at that figure who was blocking in front of her. Why did it feel? This scene was a little familiar. Yiqing Luo blinked as she regained her senses. Master Gu. This person wasn't anyone else, it was the young matriarch of Gu Feng's sect whom she met in the Peach Blossom restaurant in the afternoon, Gu Jingyu. In the afternoon, when she and Yu Ji were battling. It was also Gu Jingyu who blocked in front of her. How long had it been? It was him again, blocking in front of her. History was always shockingly similar. She was saved by Gu Jingyu again. This time she owed a favor. Gu Jingyu turned his head back, as his eyes revealed a sliver of astonishment. Miss Yi? How did you? He looked at those 10 over black-robed men, as he nodded in understanding. You are being pursued. Yiqing Luo looked at those 10 over black-robed men, as she shrugged her shoulders. Very obvious. Need help? Gu Jingyu's gentle lips curled into a smile, as his gaze was gentle like water as he looked at Yiqing Luo's face. His voice was very soft. But in his tone, there was a trace of unintelligible treachery. But Yiqing Luo caught it. She frowned slightly, as she raised her head to meet Gu Jingyu's eyes. Was he angry because of her? However, she was even more certain that this seemingly gentle man was definitely not as gentle as he appeared on the surface. Yiqing Luo concealed the deep thoughts in her eyes as she gave a slight smile. These dregs, it's not worthwhile for you to make a move. She did not want to owe Gu Jingyu a third favor. Jun Qingwu had already gone to the upper realm to inform Dmo Xian about the situation in the North Continent. Ah Xian would be back soon. If Ah Xian knew that she owed a man 2 favors, he reckoned that the vinegar jar was about to flip over. Without waiting for Gu Jingyu to speak, Yiqing Luo had already walked directly towards those 10 over black-robed men. As she walked, she kept the devouring flame fan back into the profound phoenix ring. He casually took out a long whip. 10 over black-robed men suddenly regained their senses as their eyes stared at Yiqing Luo in shock. What was going on? Wasn't this little girl swallowed by the poisonous snake? Why did it become like this now? The 10 over black-robed men recalled the burst of profound energy which was released from Yiqing Luo earlier. Instantly, there was a wave of fear in their hearts. But Yiqing Luo's face was filled with fear as her pink lips rose slightly, like a poppy, blooming with a suffocating charm. Now. It's my turn to fulfill your wishes. 10 over black-robed men's pupils contracted. Thinking of the clamor earlier when they were certain that Yiqing Luo didn't dare to kill anyone. Looking at the current Yiqing Luo who was filled with murderous intent, her eyes icy cold. Their spines instantly turned cold. Chapter 2406. Aren't all of you seeking death? Why do you want to be a stray dog now? Yiqing Luo smiled as she gazed at those fleeing figures. Her frosty eyes were filled with a chilly glint. Her fingers moved. The long whip in her hand was like a poisonous snake as it swiftly coiled around them. No one could tell how she made her move. And what did she do? By the time everyone regained their senses, those 10 over black-robed men were trapped in the long whip. They were totally immobilized. The 10 over black-robed men's pupils dilated as they stared at Yiqing Luo in horror. They couldn't react at all. They were so easily trapped by Yiqing Luo without any chance to resist. Moreover, it was just a long whip. Trapping over 10 of them. Don't worry, I won't let you die in the wilderness. Yiqing Luo tilted her head, her long curly lashes were overflowing with color, shining with an intoxicating luster. The 10 over black-robed men heard that and the fear on their faces grew thicker. Yiqing Luo laughed softly. Her fingers tightened as she quickly pulled those 10 over black-robed men in front of her. Yiqing Luo's face was still that innocent and sweet smile. However, his eyes were calm without a single ripple. Ah! A series of miserable shrieks resounded in the air above the forest. Very quickly, it returned to peace. Yiqing Luo casually threw the long whip in her hand. Kitty! Yiqing Luo called out softly. Kitty Li hopped forward and held Yiqing Luo's arm. Hang these corpses at the main entrance of the Battle King's residence, the more obvious the better, the more sensational the better. Yiqing Luo's voice was very calm, as though she was talking about a very ordinary topic. Originally, Yiqing Luo had no intention to kill these black-robed men. But, if they didn't offend her, she naturally wouldn't offend them. These black-robed men wanted her life. Then they shouldn't blame her for being merciless and taking their lives. Anne. General Battle King. She would slowly settle it with him bit by bit. This scene was witnessed by Gu Jingyu. His gaze was deep and gentle as he stared at Yiqing Luo without blinking. As though he wanted to see through her body and see her soul. It was so deep, so sincere. Gu Jingyu couldn't deny it. He had already been completely bewitched by this girl who could barely be considered delicate and pretty. Obviously, most of the women he had seen were many times more beautiful than her. But, this seemingly elegant young girl, however, it had a unique charm. He looked at the lifeless corpses that fell to the ground one by one. He then looked at the young girl who was standing beside the corpse and talking to the cute little girl calmly. His heart inexplicably tightened. It was as if some kind of emotion was gradually spreading. The girl in his eyes. Her clothes were simple but elegant. Her looks were barely elegant and pleasing to the eye. However, it was evil, like a blooming poppy flower. He continued to exude a suffocating charm. It captivated and moved one's soul. It was until Yiqing Luo finished instructing Kitty Li and walked towards Gu Jingyu. Only then did Gu Jingyu manage to regain his senses. Ah, what did you just say? Gu Jingyu looked at Yiqing Luo in a daze. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly as she glanced at the ground full of corpses. Don't tell me you were frightened by these corpses. Chapter 2407. This looked like a pure and innocent young master. Yiqing Luo laughed lightly. What's there to be surprised about? Surprised that I will kill people? It seemed that those black-robed men also thought that she didn't dare to kill them. She looked like a young lady who had no strength to truss a chicken. Gu Jingyu's blush turned even redder, as though his inner thoughts were exposed. Yiqing Luo looked at Gu Jingyu's expression as she smiled faintly. She raised her head and looked at the azure sky through the dense trees. She smiled faintly. In this place where the strong are revered, where human lives are treated as grass, the only way to survive is to go out and block the enemy in front of you. Gu Jingyu was stunned as he looked at her in astonishment. Yiqing Luo continued to smile. I'm not a saint, I'm a human and I will be selfish and I don't want to die. Since I don't want to die, then in order to survive, my enemy can only die. So, killing people to me is very normal. No matter if it was her past life or this life. Killing people to her was as normal as eating a meal. She respected every life. And also respected every choice. If it wasn't for the fact that they offended her. If it wasn't for the fact that they wanted her life. She wouldn't bother about it. But, if the other party chose to be her enemy and wanted her life. Or it might affect the future of the people around her. Then, she would not hesitate to take action. She couldn't do it, to sacrifice her life for unimportant people. Hearing Yiqing Luo's words, Gu Jingyu was stunned momentarily. After some time, the gaze he used to look at Yiqing Luo was filled with some heartache and connection. A light voice, with some illusory emptiness. You must have suffered a lot. For a young lady to say such words. He must have experienced a reign of terror and walked out of it. Otherwise, how was it possible for her to be so indifferent? Like just now. She killed 10 over black-robed men with her bare hands. There wasn't any change in her expression. It really seemed like something that couldn't be more normal. Yiqing Luo met his heartache gaze and couldn't help but laughed out, young Master Gu's words make me seem to be very pitiful. As for me, I've never felt that my past life was bad for me. She chuckled, her eyes indifferent. It's because of my past that I've developed a strong heart. It's also why I can survive in this place. When Gu Jingyu heard that, he looked at Yiqing Luo's elegant face and finally smiled warmly. Young miss is so open-minded, I've learned a lot. Yiqing Luo waved her hand and took a look at Kitty Li, who was carrying Shi Ju and waiting for them to leave, as she brought up a topic. Right, Mr. Gu, why are you here? This place was half an hour's journey away from Qinghua City. She had purposely come here to lure the black-robed men. That Gu Jingyu, he mentioned the purpose of his visit. Gu Jingyu's expression suddenly froze. Oh no. I forgot all about it. I did it to save the Bu family village. Bu village. Yiqing Luo looked at Gu Jingyu's solemn expression. I'll follow you to take a look. Gu Jingyu hesitated for a moment. It will be dangerous. No worries. Yiqing Luo shook her head and smiled faintly. You're clear about my ability, so don't worry about me. That's not something that can be solved with profound energy. Gu Jingyu pursed his thin lips. He pondered for some time before he decided, all right. Then remember to follow me closely. No matter what you see, don't be rash and act on your own. Chapter 2408. She followed Gu Jingyu to the Bu family village. There were 2 reasons. Firstly, she had to send Gu Jingyu away. Kitty Li and Shi Ju, who had reverted to its original form, moved those 10 over corpses. Earlier the glower flame fan had been seen by Gu Jingyu. If there was another Shi Ju's original form, even an idiot would know her real identity. Secondly, Bu, this surname. Previously, when she and Yuan Kuang had their first conflict, it was Miao Yi's grandma Bu who helped her. Later on, she almost suffered from the revenge of the Battle King's residents. This grandma Bu and the Bu family village, surely there wasn't any connection. Yiqing Luo decided to take a look for herself. The Bu family village was not far from this forest. As long as they passed through this forest and walked for another 10 over kilometers, they would be able to see the Bu family village's sign. It was no wonder that Gu Jingyu would so coincidentally enter this forest. The 2 of them walked into the Bu family village one after another. This village looked extremely dilapidated and poor. As far as the eye could see, there were a few thatched huts. The slightly better ones were the wooden huts. There were about 10 over houses. The entire village probably wasn't as big as her garden in the old mansion. Moreover, the people in this village were mostly old people who were over 50 years old. Seeing some outsiders coming over, those old people all set their gazes on them curiously. Yiqing Luo surveyed the surroundings. She didn't sense anything strange. Luckily, we arrived in time. Seeing the peace in the village, Gu Jingyu heaved a sigh of relief. He looked sideways at the young lady beside him and his tone was obviously much more relaxed. Sorry for making you worried. We arrived in time. This village. Is something going to happen? Yiqing Luo asked in puzzlement. Gu Jingyu only smiled. The 2 of them walked all the way to the end of the village. Only then did they stop. Tired? Gu Jingyu looked at Yiqing Luo gently. Yiqing Luo nodded. Gu Jingyu then started walking towards a wooden hut at the end of the village. This was a shed made of wood, and there were a few wooden tables and chairs. An old man was boiling water in front of the stove. Old grandpa, can I have some water? Gu Jingyu asked gently and elegantly. The old man raised his head. It took a long time for his muddy eyes to see Gu Jingyu's face. He quickly revealed a kind smile and said, "Young man, sit down. The tea will be ready soon." Gu Jingyu expressed his thanks and turned his head towards Yiqing Luo. "Sit down and wait for a while." Yiqing Luo didn't know what he was up to. She followed him to a nearby wooden table and sat down. Soon, the old man brought out the tea that he had brewed. Gu Jingyu sent a cup of tea to Yiqing Luo's table. "Drink some tea first and take a rest." Yiqing Luo received the tea and politely thanked him. The cup was rough. However, the fragrance of the tea that wafted out was extremely rich and pleasant. The mist clouded her eyes. She took a sip of her tea. It was extremely mellow, and the fragrance lingered in the mouth. She couldn't help but praise, "Good tea." When the old man heard this, he chuckled and said, "It's good that you like it. Our village isn't good at other things, but our tea leaves are especially fragrant." The old man was very hospitable. Intentionally or unintentionally, Gu Jingyu wanted to find out the situation of the Bu family village from the old man's mouth. Very quickly, they started chatting. Yiqing Luo drank her tea and Gu Jingyu would refill her tea from time to time. Chapter 2409. Young Couple. Pray for Children. What a big misunderstanding. This was a big misunderstanding. Yiqing Luo quickly put down the teacup and explained seriously, "Old grandpa, you've misunderstood. He and I are just ordinary friends, not. Young couple are still so shy. I'm experienced. I understand. I understand." The old man nodded with an "I understand" expression and smiled ambiguously. Yiqing Luo wanted to cry but no tears came out. This misunderstanding had to be explained clearly. She was a married woman. "Master Gu, you have to explain to old grandpa, a woman's reputation is very important." Yiqing Luo decisively asked Gu Jingyu for help. While Gu Jingyu was in a daze. The old man's words, "young couple," echoed in his ears. In his heart, there was an inexplicable feeling of satisfaction. Young couple was not bad. If he could become husband and wife with such a woman, he could let go and fight for his own ambition. Hearing Yiqing Luo's cry for help, Gu Jingyu suddenly regained his senses and his gentle gaze met her eyes. "It's hard to change the old man's mind. Explaining will only make things worse. You don't have to worry about it." Yiqing Luo expressed that she cared. But it was indeed as Gu Jingyu said. The more she explained, the more excited the old man was that she and Gu Jingyu were a young couple. She was thinking of ways to convince the old man that she had nothing to do with Gu Jingyu. But she heard Gu Jingyu casually asked while drinking his tea, "I heard that this month, no one went to the sacred spring to pray for children. Is it because the sacred spring is not efficacious anymore?" The old man's smile suddenly froze. A trace of pain flashed past his muddy old eyes. Gu Jingyu immediately put down the teacup and apologized guiltily. "Sorry old grandpa, if I asked something inconvenient, just pretend I didn't say it. It's not inconvenient." The old man sighed heavily. "You will know sooner or later." He paused and put down the tray in his hand. "This month, there are indeed no young couples going to the sacred spring. Not because the sacred spring is not efficacious anymore, but the Bu family village is not peaceful. To go to the sacred spring, you must pass through the Bu family village. But recently, there will always be a group of people who will come to the Bu family village to make trouble, plunder the resources of the village, and from time to time, they will kill the travelers or villagers who pass through the village." At this point, the old man's voice was choking. "Who is it? Plunder resources." Yiqing Luo suddenly put down the teacup. The Bu family village was inhabited by some old people. Other than tea leaves, what other resources could there be? He couldn't even feed himself anymore. And it had to be plundered by others. "I don't know either." those people are here to look for someone. They were certain that the person they were looking for was in the Bu family village. If you don't hand over that person, then we'll come again. We'll rob and kill until everyone in the Bu family village is dead. The old man closed his eyes. During this period of time, those people have come more frequently. 2 young couples have already died under the blades of those people, so those young couples don't dare to go to the holy spring to pray for children anymore, looking for someone. Yiqing Luo looked at Gu Jingyu. Gu Jingyu shook his head. After you two have finished your tea, immediately rush to the holy spring. Leave the village before those people come, then you won't have to worry about your lives. The old man put away his sorrowful emotions and revealed a kind smile. He chuckled and said, "You two are here to happily pray for a child. Don't listen to this old man's nonsense and let it affect your mood." The old man's smile seemed to sweep away all the haze. Chapter 24:10. Old Grandpa, since those people frequently come to harass the village, why haven't you left yet? Yiqing Luo looked around at those villagers who surrounded them in 2s and 3s. Perhaps this was the first time they had seen visitors. People with outstanding temperament like Yiqing Luo and Gu Jingyu. These people were all over 50 years old and their clothes were extremely rough. Some were carrying hoes, some were carrying machetes, some were leaning on farming tools. Although they looked like they had been through hardships. But on everyone's faces, they all had a faint smile on their faces. It seemed to be happy that a guest had finally passed by the Bu family village. Yiqing Luo guessed. They probably thought that batch of people would not come again. So outsiders finally dared to head to the sacred spring to pray for children. Since this Bu family village was so dangerous, they were unable to hand over who those people were looking for. Why not leave this dangerous place directly? Leave. The old man laughed lightly. The young people have all left. Some went to Qinghua City, some went to other big cities. We old fellows. If we leave, in future when those young people want to come back, they can't find a home, what should we do? Yiqing Luo's heart tightened. The expression in Gu Jingyu's eyes became gentler. All right, you two, hurry to the sacred spring, don't waste any more time. The old man didn't want to say anything more as he picked up the tray, waved his hand and returned to the stove. Yiqing Luo and Gu Jingyu looked at the tea in their cups, speechless. After some time, Gu Jingyu spoke warmly. The old people in the Bu family village are very kind, this is the reason why I came here. Do you know who that group of people are? Yiqing Luo thought of Gu Jingyu's purpose of coming to the Bu family village. Could it be because of those people who were harassing them? I'm not sure who they are, so I specially came to confirm. Gu Jingyu shook his head and answered truthfully. After knowing who those people are, will you help the Bu family village or that group of people? Yiqing Luo raised her eyes and looked straight at Gu Jingyu. In your heart, what kind of person am I? Gu Jingyu heard that and a trace of sadness flashed past his gentle eyes. Yiqing Luo lowered her head silently. What kind of person was Gu Jingyu? She wasn't sure. The only thing she knew was that this man was not as kind as he seemed on the surface. Her silence. This caused the sadness in Gu Jingyu's eyes to become even thicker. He sighed and drank the tea in his cup. If you want me to help the Bu family village, I will help the Bu family village. In that case, right from the start, you weren't here to help the Bu family village. Yiqing Luo understood the deeper meaning behind his words. However, he did not hear the flirtatious tone in Gu Jingyu's words. Even old man Song, who was within the azure dew bracelet, couldn't help but hold his forehead. Did this girl put all her EQ on Dizun, the boy? She couldn't tell that Gu was flirting with her. Gu Jingyu's mood became increasingly gloomy. He felt somewhat defeated. When had he ever been ignored by a woman like this? Now, it was rare for him to have a woman that he wanted. But this woman was completely uninterested in him. The atmosphere between the two was a little strange. The surrounding villagers watched for a long time. The whispers began. Every time he sees this young couple, he thinks of his son and daughter-in-law. Chapter 24:11. His wife also went to the city to look for their son, but... Sigh. The villagers sighed regretfully. Elder T is too stubborn, staying in the Bu family village. Not only is his life in danger, he is also living in waiting every day. Why not go directly to the city? Qinghua City is not far from here. Actually, it's better to go and see how his wife and son are doing in the city. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly when she heard those words. She got up and looked at those villagers. Grandpas, you said Elder T's son is in Qinghua City. The villagers were stunned. They looked at Yiqing Luo in panic. You? How did you hear us? They were whispering to each other, and their voices were clearly very soft. If it were ordinary people, those they were discussing, ordinary people indeed couldn't hear them clearly. But Yiqing Luo and Gu Jingyu were cultivators, and their cultivation was rather high. The villagers' words were naturally heard clearly. We came from Qinghua City. Yiqing Luo didn't answer the villagers' question but said directly, if it's possible, we can help Elder T to look for his wife and son. The villagers looked at each other and stared at each other in bewilderment. No one spoke. The old man noticed the commotion over here and waved a huge cattail leaf fan at those villagers. What are you gossiping about again? Go away, don't disturb the guests drinking their tea. Those villagers shook their heads helplessly but still left the tea house. The old man smiled and waved the cattail leaf fan at Yiqing Luo. Young lady, don't listen to their nonsense, finish your tea and go to the sacred spring with your husband. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips tightly. She wasn't a kind person, but she was a person with a heart. Losing news of her loved ones. And those robbers, time and time again, harassed the Bu family village, killing the villagers cruelly. But he couldn't leave. Afraid that if he left, his loved ones would return and couldn't find him. The old grandpa's heart was actually more uncomfortable than anyone else. But he still had to consider their feelings, smiling benevolently. Elder T was really a very gentle old grandpa. So gentle that it made the usually emotionless her. He couldn't help but feel his heart ache. Old grandpa, it's going to be the Qinghua sect leader's 50th birthday soon. The citizens of Qinghua City have to stand on the streets to celebrate the sect leader's birthday. If you're looking for your son and wife, why don't you show us their portraits? We'll go back to Qinghua City and help you look for them. Yiqing Luo did not force Elder T to leave with her. However, since he already knew about this matter, if it was convenient for her to help, this matter could not be left unattended. The smile on Elder T's face froze. He seemed to be hesitating. To be more precise, he was afraid. What was there to be afraid of? He was afraid that his wife and son had not returned yet. What if fear is bad news? Or was he afraid that his son and wife would live in the city and not want an old man like him? No matter which one it was. Even old-time T was afraid to find out. He would rather hold on to this hope and silently guard it. Yiqing Luo didn't urge or force Elder T, only waiting for him to make his own choice. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Elder T finally heaved a heavy sigh. Forget it, there's no use guarding this false hope. I want to know what's their situation now. As long as they're safe, no matter what, I'll be at ease. Saying that, Elder T walked into the small wooden house with heavy footsteps. Chapter 24:12. The old man's gaze stared at the wooden box in his hand, filled with longing and longing. He walked in front of Yiqing Luo, placing the wooden box on the wooden table. That wooden box looked exquisite and extremely clean. She could tell that the old man often flipped through this wooden box. The things in the wooden box. It was also the obsession that supported him till now. The old man's wrinkled hands trembled as he opened the wooden box. In the wooden box, there were a few small things. And there were 2 paintings. The old man picked up one of the paintings. His fingertips were trembling slightly. Yiqing Luo didn't rush him, nor did she disturb him. After some time, the old man slowly placed the painting on the table. This is the only painting this old woman has. Before she went to the city to look for her son, a young couple who passed by drew the only painting for her. The old man's voice sounded choked. The yellowed painting slowly opened up. Suddenly, there was a commotion outside the village. Those villagers who were called away by the old man earlier all ran back. Elder T. Quickly keep the things, those people are here again. The old man's hand which was opening the painting paused. The expression on his face turned extremely ugly. He abruptly kept the painting into the wooden box. Run, run, run. Why are you running? Haven't you learned to be obedient? A rough voice was heard from afar. A group of people, about 40 to 50 people, majestically walked into the Bu family village. The few men who were walking in front were dressed in strange black clothing, short top, tight long pants, with a black belt embroidered with strange patterns on their waists, directly lifted their feet, and kicked those villagers who ran over. These villagers were all ordinary people, and they were all old. After being kicked, they immediately fell onto the ground, screaming in pain, and were unable to move. Those men laughed loudly, all the way to the tea house. Young people, you find a chance to run. These people are not good people. Elder T looked at those people, as his face sunk, as he suppressed his voice. These people. Were they the ones who robbed the Bu family village of resources, and indiscriminately killed innocent people? Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes, as she took in these 40 to 50 people, in a panoramic view. These people's clothing was strange, but extremely familiar. If she didn't remember wrongly, his attire was similar to that of the Miao tribe's patriarch that she had seen in the Battle King's mansion. However, the Miao tribe leader's clothes were obviously more luxurious. In other words, these people were from the Miao tribe. Why did the Miao people want to harass the Bu family village? And to use such cruel methods? Who was the person they were looking for? Run. Where do you think you're going? Elder T, under my nose, who do you think you can let escape? The Miao people parted to form a path. A middle-aged man in his 40s walked out. Yiqing Luo could tell from that man's clothing and patterns. This person was among this group of Miao people. His status was the highest. If he didn't guess wrong, this person should be one of the elders of the Miao tribe. Sure enough, in the next moment, Elder T suppressed his anger and said, "Third Elder Miao, you just want to find someone in the Bu family village. This young couple is just passing by the Bu family village. They want to go to the holy spring to pray for a child. Why do you have to be so aggressive?" Third Elder Miao laughed loudly. He walked directly to the tea house, and very naturally sat down at the table next to Yiqing Luo. He swept a disdainful glance at Yiqing Luo and Gu Jingyu, and his gaze paused slightly on Gu Jingyu. But very quickly, he arrogantly turned his head around. Star. Chapter 24:13. Tsk Tisk, Elder T, you can't even protect yourself, and you still want to protect these two youngsters? Third Elder Miao laughed mockingly. Elder T's face darkened as he gritted his teeth. It's not a matter of protecting them, they're just innocent passers-by. Third Elder Meow couldn't help but laugh out loud. The surrounding attendants all laughed in agreement. For a moment, the originally quiet Boo family village was filled with ear-piercing laughter. The atmosphere of the entire village became extremely strange. Since you're so afraid that this elder will hurt innocent passers-by, then this elder will hurt innocent people even more. Third Elder Meow's eyes were hazy as he laughed coldly. His gaze slowly landed on the expressionless young girl. The young girl was extremely calm as she looked at the 40 or so people without a ripple in her eyes. Third Elder Meow couldn't help but frown. He had come to the Boo family village to look for someone. He wanted to see the useless people of the Boo family village kneel and beg for mercy, only to be toyed with and applauded by him. This passerby wasn't afraid of them at all. Ha! Did he really think that they would only target the Boo family village? Wouldn't they hurt the innocent? His gaze turned cold as he laughed coldly and continued, "You bunch of old farts won't hand over the person that this elder wants. Then, this elder will start with these innocent passers-by." Elder T's entire body trembled in anger. Third Elder Meow, don't you Meow people go too far. Our Boo family village doesn't have the person you're looking for. You want to use this excuse to plunder our resources. How dare you hurt these innocent people? Our Boo family village will fight to the death with you. Third Elder Meow looked like he had heard a joke as he looked at the clansmen around him and burst into laughter again. Fight to the death. You bunch of old and weak trash. The Meow people said disdainfully. As he spoke, he kicked the villagers who were unable to move on the ground a few more times. Come. Get up and fight to the death with us. A bunch of old farts. There were also a few Meow people who pushed the trembling villagers to the ground. It was obvious that this was the norm in the Boo family village. You are a bunch of animals. Elder T clenched his fists and pressed his palms on the table, trembling. Third Elder Meow looked at Elder T disdainfully with his sinister eyes. His eyes suddenly fell on the delicate wooden box under Elder T's palm. The Meow people beside him had sharp eyes and walked over. Hey, Elder T, what other treasures are you hiding? As he spoke, the Meow Man snatched the wooden box from Elder T's hand. It was so fast that Old Time T couldn't react at all. Elder T's expression changed drastically. He immediately rushed forward and snatched it back. Give it back. I can give you anything you want. No one is allowed to touch this thing. Elder T's attitude piqued Third Elder Meow's interest. He spread his hands. The Meow lackey immediately handed the wooden box to Third Elder Meow. The other Meow tribesmen easily stopped Elder T. A Meow tribesman pushed hard. Old Time T's body stumbled and fell backward. Behind Elder T was Yi Ching Luo's wooden table. The position where he fell was coincidentally going to hit the corner of the wooden table. To the old man, it would cause a fatal injury. Just as Elder T fell, Yi Ching Luo's body had already stood up quickly and caught hold of Elder T. Chapter 24:14. Elder T had no time to express his gratitude. He had just steadied himself when he dashed towards Third Elder Meow's direction in tears. Bastard. Don't touch it. Bastard. Return the box to me. Old Grandpa. Yi Ching Luo held on to Elder T. Elder T was an ordinary person. If he insisted on charging forward, he would be sending himself to his death. Yi Ching Luo naturally couldn't watch Elder T send himself to his death. Elder T stared at the wooden box in Third Elder Meow's hands as he bellowed furiously, "Let me go. I'm going to fight with that bastard. I'm going to fight with him." Yi Ching Luo held on to him tightly. Very quickly, she pulled Elder T behind her back. Elder T wailed as he struggled with all his might, trying to charge towards Third Elder Meow. The more Elder T did so, Third Elder Meow became more and more interested in the contents of the wooden box. He seemed to be intentionally provoking Elder T. Holding onto the wooden box, he shook it roughly from left to right. He sneered in disdain, "What's in it? It's just a low-quality wooden box, how can it be so precious?" He casually tossed it in his hands. That action agitated Elder T once again. The surrounding villagers had long been harassed by the Meow tribesmen time and time again and were already annoyed beyond endurance. They were afraid of the Meow people's cruelty and brutality. But at this very moment, looking at Elder T's most precious wooden box, which he usually hugged in his arms like a treasure, the wooden box that no one in the village was allowed to touch, being trampled by Third Elder Meow. The rage that surged up in his heart. The so-called fear had long been replaced by it. It was just death anyway. Being tortured, robbed and trampled on by the Meow people. Being hung up and beaten every single day. Compared to death, how was this any better? Fight with this bunch of bastards. Don't let them rob and humiliate us anymore. Even if we die, we must drag this bunch of bastards down with us. The surrounding villagers suddenly burst into a tragic roar of anger. Their faces were filled with an expression of facing death with equanimity. All of them raised their hoes, farming tools etc. as they charged towards the Meow people. The Meow people totally didn't expect that this bunch of old and weak trash would suddenly go berserk. For a moment, they couldn't react in time. A group of villagers pounced on him and smashed his head. The 41 Meow people, at least a dozen of them, were pressed on the ground by a group of villagers, venting their anger. For such a long time, they were all suppressing their anger. At this moment, all of his anger was burning. They were burning with all their might. Elder T looked at the chaotic scene. He shook off Yi Qing Luo, who refused to let go of him. "Young lady, immediately leave this place with your husband amid the chaos. These people are deranged and will not let any innocent people go." As he was saying that, he pushed Yi Qing Luo towards Gu Jingyu's direction. Yi Qing Luo and Gu Jingyu exchanged glances. At this critical juncture, how could they possibly leave? If they left the Bu family village now, the Meow would definitely slaughter the entire Bu village. Seeing that the two of them were still standing in their original positions, Zhang Xian nodded. Elder T struggled even harder. "Little girl, let go of me. Let's go. Let's go. Don't tell me you really want to die here with us bunch of old fellows. Old grandpa, if you believe me, I guarantee that no one in the Bu family village will be missing." Yi Qing Luo used her other hand and gently patted the wrinkled back of Elder T's hand. The young lady's resolute tone, as though it carried boundless energy. Elder T was stunned by Yi Qing Luo's words. Star. Chapter 24:15. Just at this moment, after a short period of chaos, the Meow tribesmen had already regained their senses. Third Elder Meow stood up abruptly, holding the wooden box, as he pointed towards those maddened old villagers. "Quick! Beat them to death! Kill this bunch of idiots who have eaten the hearts of bears and leopards' guts." The other Meow tribesmen who had not been beaten up by the villagers immediately pounced forward. The villagers were after all ordinary people. Venting their anger was not able to turn them into Super Saiyan in an instant, to explode out their battle potential. But moments later, they were restrained by that bunch of Meow tribesmen. Beat them up viciously. Third Elder Meow pointed at those villagers who had injuries on their faces, but were still stubborn and unyielding. He held the wooden box tightly in his hands. He was so infuriated that his expression was extremely gloomy. That was a handmade wooden box. Under his extreme strength, it gave off a cracking sound. Elder T looked at the scene in front of him, as tears filled his entire old face. He pushed Yiqing Luo with force. "Young lady, that is the only remembrance left to me by my wife and son. Let me go over. Let me go over." Yiqing Luo still didn't let go. Her charming eyes slowly swept past those villagers who had been suppressed by the Miao tribesmen till they had no way to resist. The Miao tribesmen heard Third Elder Miao's command. Thinking of the predicament of being beaten up by this bunch of old, weak and disabled trash, they immediately raised their hands, as they directly punched towards those villagers. They used all their strength. These ordinary old villagers totally could not take a few punches from them. The Miao tribesmen also used all their strength, totally wanting to take the lives of those villagers. "Stop!" Suddenly, a chilly voice rang, as ethereal and melodious to the ears. That voice was very soft and gentle, but it brought along an indescribable deterrent force. Immediately, the entire village seemed to have pressed the freeze button. Frozen on the spot. A red figure slowly walked out. Everyone's gazes turned over one by one. He saw a petite figure standing before the third elder of the Miao clan. He was only 2 steps away from Third Elder Miao. The young lady's looks were elegant. Between her brows, there was a trace of absolute chilliness. The blazing red dress swayed even though there was no wind. It made her look like a fairy from the 9 heavens. His heart could not help but tremble. Third Elder Miao was the first to regain his senses. Frowning, he stared at the young girl in front of him and threatened in a low voice, "Little girl, are you ordering us?" Yiqing Luo's eyes were calm as she met Third Elder Miao's warning gaze. She narrowed her eyes. "No, I'm warning you." "Warning." Third Elder Miao repeated his words and laughed maniacally. "Little girl, do you know who we are? Even if you want to show off, you have to look at the occasion." Yiqing Luo tilted her head, her long and narrow eyes slightly fluttered. The innocence and pureness of the young girl were fully displayed. "Are you people? I thought you were just a bunch of beasts." She paused and covered her mouth. "Tui tui tui, I said it wrong, I said it wrong," after being scolded by Yiqing Luo. The Miao people's faces turned extremely ugly. But he saw Yiqing Luo covering her mouth in a mischievous and adorable manner, as though she had said something wrong. He couldn't help but burst out laughing. "Little girl still knows fear, that means there's nothing wrong with your brain. Saying you're beasts is already praising you." Yiqing Luo added another sentence. Her long and narrow eyes curved, showing her pureness. Third Elder Miao's face instantly turned black. Chapter 24:16. Put it down. Just as Third Elder Miao was about to smash it down, the young lady calmly spat out 2 words. Her calm and indifferent voice. It revealed an unshakable charisma. Even Third Elder Miao, who was used to killing, seemed to have lost all his energy when he heard these 2 words. Third Elder Miao's expression changed slightly as anger surged in his eyes. How could he be frightened by a young lady? "Young lady, how dare you put on an act?" Third Elder Miao suppressed the fear in his heart as his sinister eyes stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo. But, the next moment, after meeting Yiqing Luo's eyes, that pair of eyes, what kind of eyes? That gaze was like a poisonous snake. It coiled around him tightly, making him unable to breathe. Obviously, her pupils were like glass, crystal clear. Obviously, her eyes were long and narrow, with an evil charm. That kind of enchanting charm. That kind of beauty that could topple a city. But it was filled with an austere and cold chill. Just a glance. But it made one feel the feeling of falling into an ice cellar. Third Elder Miao's body froze on the spot. That hand which was raised up high, suddenly loosened. The wooden box fell from his hand. Yiqing Luo stretched out her hand and caught that wooden box. But because of Third Elder Miao's anger, the wooden box which he held tightly had long lost its original firmness. The moment the wooden box fell into Yiqing Luo's hands, it had already broken into pieces. The things in the wooden box all fell onto the ground. Old woman. Elder T pounced forward, using his own body to block the things that fell out of the wooden box. He swiftly picked up the things, as he softly apologized to the things that fell onto the ground. As though he was apologizing to his own wife. Elder T speedily picked up the things. The surrounding no Miao people dared to step forward to stop him. Because Yiqing Luo was standing beside Elder T. Her entire body was emitting a horrifying pressure. Yiqing Luo lowered her eyelids, looking at Elder T wrapping those things which were more important than his life, into his clothes. The things were all picked up. She slowly bent down, as she was about to help Elder T up. Elder T was anxious and agitated to regain these important things. His fingers kept trembling. With Yiqing Luo's support, Elder T stood up. In his hand, he was still carefully rolling up the scroll that had fallen on the ground. His fingers trembled. The entire scroll was unfurled. The portrait in the scroll reflected into Yiqing Luo's eyes. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted. Elder T immediately squatted down and held the scroll in his arms as if it was a treasure. Yiqing Luo held old-time T's wrist tightly. "Grandpa, wait." Elder T felt like he was in a dream. Now, he was very clear. This young couple. They were all extraordinary people. Perhaps, these two would be the salvation of the Bu family village. "Let me have a look at the picture scroll," Yiqing Luo asked gently. Old-time T was stunned. He looked at the scroll in his arms and then looked at Yiqing Luo. Soon after, he slowly loosened his grip and unfurled the scroll. In the painting, there was an old woman wearing coarse clothes. His smile was extremely kind and gentle. He could tell. This was also a very gentle person. Yiqing Luo knew the person in the painting. She had just met the person in the painting not long ago. Wasn't it the first day she came to the northern continent, when she had a conflict with Yuan Kuang? The Granny Bu who wholeheartedly wanted to sacrifice herself to save her. She had not expected. Chapter 24:17. Little girl, you know the person in the portrait. Looking at Yiqing Luo's expression, Elder T's heart suddenly jumped and he asked nervously. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips. Thinking about what Miao Yi had said about Grandma Qi's grandson, she was silent for a while, then nodded. "When I first arrived in Joyful Heart City, Grandma Bu helped me a little, so we can be considered acquaintances." Elder T's eyes widened. His turbid old eyes were gradually covered by a layer of mist. Tears, along his wrinkled face, slid down bit by bit. He grabbed Yiqing Luo's arm agitatedly. "You saw the old woman. You saw her, didn't you? The old woman, she's still alive, still alive." Her voice was choked with sobs as she said, "You saw the old woman. You saw her, didn't you?" Looking at Elder T's tearful face, Yiqing Luo's heart softened a little. No matter what the reason was, Grandma Bu didn't return to the Bu family village. He didn't see Elder T again. For old-time T, none of this was important. The important thing was, Granny Bu was still alive. His wife was still alive. This was the best answer she could give him. "After everything is settled, follow us to Qinghua City to meet Grandma Bu." Yiqing Luo held Elder T's hand tightly and patted it lightly. "She must want to see you very much." Elder T choked with sobs and couldn't speak. He wiped the tears off his face and nodded. Yiqing Luo and Elder T had no one in their eyes as they chatted idly. The surrounding Miao tribesmen felt as if they had been disgraced. Especially Third Elder Miao. His face was as black as charcoal. You bunch of old and weak trash. How dare you be so bold? Third Elder Miao gritted his teeth and roared, "Little girl, do you want to meddle in other people's business? Today, this elder will make an example of you first." As the third elder of the Miao tribe. In front of the Miao tribesmen, he was repeatedly frightened by a young girl who looked no more than 14 or 15 years old, and he did not even dare to resist. If the news spread to the Miao stockade village, what face would he have left to face the Miao tribesmen? It was very likely that his position as the third elder would not be stable. He had to get back at them. He had to teach this bitch a lesson. Third Elder Miao's eyes revealed a vicious glint as the attack in his hands had already turned into a biting cold murderous intent, pouncing towards Yiqing Luo. A terrifying aura. In an instant, it spread throughout the entire Bu family village. "Grandpa, take the villagers and hide well. With me around, no one will be in danger." Yiqing Luo pushed Elder T towards Gu Jingyu's direction. Then, he leaped up and flew towards the profound energy released by Third Elder Miao. Third Elder Miao's attack. She could not avoid him. Once she avoids it, Third Elder Miao's attack would fall on the innocent villagers behind her. And these villagers were just ordinary people. The aftershock of Third Elder Miao's attack would also injure the villagers. The only thing she could do, it was to force Third Elder Miao's attack back. Furthermore, suppress Third Elder Miao. Gu Jingyu supported Elder T. He frowned slightly and raised his head to look at the girl who was leaving a trail of sunset in the sky. His heart was beating faster and faster. Why? He was clearly beside her. But she wasn't willing to rely on him. Why must she choose to risk her life to save the Bu family village's villagers? She obviously knew. He would rush over to the Bu family village to save the villagers. But she didn't say anything to him. This kind of woman. Chapter 24:18. Third Elder Miao and Yiqing Luo exchanged over 10 moves. Third Elder Miao realized the disparity between his and Yiqing Luo's abilities. His expression became even more solemn. He was overwhelmed with shock. He couldn't believe that this young lady who looked so weak that she could be easily strangled actually possessed such powerful strength. Even he wasn't her match. Since when was there such an incredible young lady in the North Continent? But moments later, Third Elder Miao was covered in injuries as he was flung out in an extremely pathetic state. Third Elder Miao finally stabilized his footing. His entire body was covered in injuries as it affected his muscles. It was so painful that he grimaced in pain. He couldn't help but curse at this wretched hussy's insidiousness. Yiqing Luo's injuries on Third Elder Miao didn't even use her profound energy to hurt his internal organs. But she kept on giving Third Elder Miao one injury after another. Moreover, the injuries on every part of his body were all places that could easily be affected, and the pain would be extreme. At this moment, Third Elder Miao was in an extremely sorry state. "You bunch of good-for-nothings. Hurry up and help me." Third Elder Miao bellowed angrily at the surrounding Miao people. Those 40 to 50 Miao people were probably shocked by Yiqing Luo's ferocious battle power. But no one stepped forward. Third Elder Miao was so angry that he stomped his feet. But no matter how he scolded or howled, those Miao people stood on the spot as they stared at him with wide eyes. No matter how badly he was tortured by Yiqing Luo, he was in an extremely pathetic state. Whereas on the other side, under Gu Jingyu's protection, Elder T had gathered all the Bu family village villagers at a corner of the tea house. Elder T hugged the things in his arms tightly as he looked at Yiqing Luo worriedly, young master, you. Go help your wife, we'll be fine. Gu Jingyu placed one hand behind his back as he looked at Yiqing Luo's direction with a complicated gaze. He looked at the villagers who were hiding behind him as they trembled in fear but were worried about the situation anxiously. Eventually he shook his head. She can handle it alone, I'll protect you. If she leaves you, the Miao people might take the opportunity to kidnap you to threaten her. When the villagers heard that, they couldn't persuade further. Indeed, if there was no one to protect them, they would be easily captured by the Miao people. By then, it would implicate that young lady instead. Soon, the battle ended. Third Elder Miao lay on the ground in a sorry state, his body covered in blood. He no longer had the strength to move. His body was still twitching and trembling. Yiqing Luo casually swung the long whip in her hand. The whip cut through the air, making a hua-hua sound. It was also mixed with a wave of air that kept rolling. Third Elder Miao trembled even more violently when he saw this. He cowered in fear. Where was the slightest bit of his usual high-spirited demeanor? Just earlier, he was whipped by Yiqing Luo till his entire body was covered with injuries. Moreover, the sharp pain on his body did not numb him at all. Instead, it became more and more painful. He screamed in pain. Even if he wanted to faint, he couldn't. A shadow had already formed in his heart. Yiqing Luo's brows rose slightly, as her long and narrow eyes outlined an extremely shallow arc. She bent down and looked down at the man who was trembling with fear. What? Aren't you going to teach me a lesson? Why was he curled up on the ground? How are you going to lecture me like this? His words caused Third Elder Miao's face to turn red with shame. But Yiqing Luo seemed as though she couldn't see his shame. Chapter 24:19. You! How dare you! The more Yiqing Luo said she didn't want his life, the more afraid Third Elder Miao was. His eyes widened and his hoarse voice was filled with hatred and murderous intent. You dare to kill me? I'm an elder of Miao Miao. I'm an elder of Miao Miao Miao. Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards as she smiled fearlessly. Very soon, you won't be. Perhaps this sentence had infuriated Third Elder Miao. His body, which was sprawled on the ground, started to twist violently. Slut! This elder wants you dead. Want you? He was roaring. His voice was almost hoarse. Just at this moment, Yiqing Luo saw clearly that Third Elder Miao's pupils suddenly widened. Numerous black things started to spread out from Third Elder Miao's right eye. The white of his eye slowly turned black. It blended together with the color of his pupils. Third Elder Miao's right eye was pitch black, like a bottomless black hole. It was extremely horrifying. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly as she stared at Third Elder Miao's right eye. She wasn't sure what was going on with Third Elder Miao's eye. Behind her, Gu Jingyu's panicked voice was heard. Miss Yi, be careful. The next moment, her wrist was tightened. Her body was suddenly pulled by someone. Her face crashed into a solid chest. Gu Jingyu, what are you doing? The unfamiliar man's presence wrapped around her body. Yiqing Luo couldn't tolerate any man other than a Xian touching her. She felt a wave of disgust and discomfort. She struggled. Gu Jingyu hugged her even tighter. Bam! The man's suppressed groan was heard beside her ear. Yiqing Luo was stunned as she pushed Gu Jingyu away and looked up at him. Gu Jingyu's face was pale as a trace of blood leaked out from the corner of his lips. He met Yiqing Luo's gaze. He immediately raised his hand and wiped the trace of blood from the corner of his lips as he took a deep breath and stabilized himself. What's the matter? Yiqing Luo grabbed Gu Jingyu's arm. The cold touch made her frown even tighter. Nothing. Gu Jingyu's lips twitched as he shook his head indifferently. You don't need to bother about me, I'll leave these people to you. Yiqing Luo didn't let go of his wrist. Tell me the truth. Gu Jingyu pursed his thin lips, turned his head, and did not speak. Clearly, he wasn't going to tell the truth. Ha! Ha ha ha! What a lovely couple, third elder Miao panted heavily, but he could not stop laughing. Yiqing Luo pulled Gu Jingyu away and looked at third elder Miao. Third elder Miao's eyes had already returned to normal. She frowned as she recalled third elder Miao's black eyes. She then recalled the scene of Gu Jingyu hugging her tightly, his back facing third elder Miao, and the scene of him getting injured. Could it be, your little lover has been poisoned by my special goo poison? As long as I'm injured, he'll be injured too. Ha 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 ha. Third elder Miao clutched his chest and laughed. Little girl, didn't you want to kill me? Kill me, and this little lover of yours will die with me. Sure enough, it was goo poison. Yiqing Luo's expression sunk as she glanced sideways at Gu Jingyu. As expected, as third elder Miao laughed heartily. Gu Jingyu's face grew paler. He couldn't even stand stably. Yiqing Luo hurriedly stretched out her hand to support him as she turned her head to look at third elder Miao. Remove the goo immediately. Chapter 24:20. Yiqing Luo's fingers clenched as an eerie glint appeared in her eyes. Are you threatening me? Third elder Miao could tell that Yiqing Luo cared a lot about her little lover. He had a way to control Yiqing Luo. Third elder Miao naturally had nothing to fear. Yes, this elder is threatening you. Yiqing Luo laughed lightly when she heard that. Her long and narrow eyes outlined a curved arc. It looked extremely demonic and extremely alluring. But her eyes were sparkling with a faint glow. But it was filled with chilliness. It was like the cold wind in December, gathering at the bottom of her eyes. Such an oppressive pressure, even third elder Miao's heart couldn't help but tremble. He suppressed the surging fear in his heart, forcing himself to look as though he was in control of the entire situation. Forcing himself not to lower Yiqing Luo's imposing manner. Young lady, if you still want your little lover to live, then obediently kneel on the ground and admit your mistake. Then kill these old fellows in the Bu family village in front of me. Third elder Miao raised his head complacently as he arrogantly gave out his orders. His gaze towards Yiqing Luo became colder and colder. Third elder Miao only felt carefree. He became even more complacent. Young lady, don't you like to meddle in other people's business? Now I will let you meddle in this matter. How about it? Young lady, what will you choose? Will you save your beloved little lover or save these old fellows who have nothing to do with you? Third elder Miao's gaze swept past those 50-over-old villagers who were gathered at the corner of the tea stall. The villagers were frightened by his gaze and heard the contents of his words. Their faces were filled with shock and terror. These Miao people were simply too cruel. They actually thought of such a method to torture people's hearts. They were not human at all. The villagers were filled with anger. But no one dared to really vent out their anger. The courage to work together and counterattack in a rampage. They had long been exhausted. At this moment, Elder T hugged the thing in his arms tightly as his steps trembled as he walked out. Young lady, you just promise him to kill us, and let him cure your husband's poison. Elder T. The villagers behind him were stunned and hurriedly called out to Elder T. Elder T slowly turned around, facing the villagers. There were still traces of tears on his face. His tear-stained eyes swept across the villagers who had accompanied him for most of his life. Choking with sobs, he said, "This couple was just an innocent passerby. It was our carelessness that got them involved. All this while, we have been enduring the Miao people's plunder and brutal killings. Time and time again, he had to endure and suffer again and again. But it did not change the Miao people's conscience, instead, it encouraged the Miao people's brutality and cruelty. All of this is our fault, it had nothing to do with anyone else. Now, this pair of innocent passers-by, because they helped us, caused them to be poisoned by the Miao tribe. How can we sit back and do nothing? How can we watch innocent passers-by be tortured by the goo poison because of our lives? The Miao people had no heart. Don't tell me we don't have any. If this young man really died because of the goo poison, even if we survived, can we really escape from the blame of our conscience? One question after another silenced the villagers. They could not refute. Chapter 24-21. This place is our Bu family's turf. This place belongs to all of us. This place cannot allow anyone to trample, to invade. Elder T's voice, towards the end, was filled with solemnity and determination. He said these words with the heart of meeting his death. Elder T's words landed. He hugged it tightly in his arms, as though it was a treasure. Following that, his vision, bit by bit, swept past all the villagers. This is my personal decision, so even if you don't want to accept, I will not force you. But no need to persuade me, I have already decided. Saying that, Elder T turned around, facing Yiqing Luo, young lady, after I die, pass these things to my old woman. Saying that, Elder T passed the things in his hands to Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo stared at Elder T's hand, not moving for a long time. Elder T gave her a benevolent smile. Young lady, it's all right. Do it, I won't blame you, just treat it as giving me a release. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes slightly. Not saying a word, not moving. The atmosphere froze in an instant. When Third Elder Miao saw this, he finally felt like he was in control of his own life. He laughed complacently and arrogantly, ha ha ha. Young lady, look, the Bu family village's villagers are so understanding, they all want to sacrifice themselves, to fulfill you two lovers. Why aren't you quickly taking action, fulfill the villagers' sacrifice for you? Third Elder Miao laughed loudly, as he looked at those 50 over Miao people, who were still standing on the same spot, not moving at all. Now the initiative is already in my hands, what are you all still in a daze for? Quick, go over and help that young lady, after all she's just a young lass who hasn't even grown her hair, you all have to help her kill people by the side. Although his words sounded as though he wanted someone to help Yiqing Luo. In actual fact, he was forcing Yiqing Luo to choose. Forcing Yiqing Luo to kill those villagers. However, after Third Elder Miao finished his words, those Miao people still didn't move. They all looked at Third Elder Miao, as though he was a wax statue. Third Elder Miao pointed at the Miao people angrily, good. Now this elder can't order you around. Good, very good. He vented his anger onto Yiqing Luo, young lady, this elder doesn't have the patience to waste words with you. This elder will give you the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn to think about it. If you still haven't made a choice after the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, then, this elder will make the choice for you. Hearing this, Elder T became even more anxious. Little girl, just do it. Our Bu family village has implicated you and your husband. Elder T once again raised the thing in his hand towards Yiqing Luo's direction. I've lived for most of my life. My only obsession is to wait for my son, to wait for my old woman to come back. Now that I know that my old woman is still alive, I no longer have any obsession. You don't have to worry about me. At this time, a few villagers walked up to her and said, little girl, Elder T is right. We are already people with half of our bodies in the yellow soil. We will die no matter when we die. This is the territory of our Bu family village. How can we implicate innocent people and sacrifice ourselves for our own lives? Isn't it just death? We're not afraid. Little girl, dying in your hands is better than letting those Meow family village dogs continue to bully us. Chapter 24-22. The villagers were all talking at once. In the end, all the villagers chose to die without any hesitation. They were not willing to implicate the innocent. Looking at these old people in front of her, each and every one of their faces were unafraid of death. Yiqing Luo's heart softened slightly. There were many bad people in this world. But at the same time, there were kind people. The villagers in this Bu family village were all very gentle people. They could sacrifice themselves for others. This was a kind of noble sentiment. Yiqing Luo's gaze slowly turned gentle. Cough. Cough cough. A cough rang out, breaking the clamorous argument at this moment. Everyone's gaze turned over. Gu Jingyu sat on the stone bench, one hand placed on the stone table, while the other pressed against his chest. His pale complexion looked extremely weak. Coughing sounds could be heard. The more he coughed, the whiter his face became. That seemingly slender body looked as if it would collapse at any time. You all, listen to me. Gu Jingyu moved his lips, as his voice was hoarse. The villagers immediately stopped their clamoring, waiting for Gu Jingyu to speak. Gu Jingyu moved his body. He supported himself on the stone table, as he tried to stand up. But his entire body was weak, unable to exert any strength. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased, as she slowly walked up, supporting Gu Jingyu with one hand. Gu Jingyu's gentle eyes flashed past a glint of joy. He lowered his voice, as he thanked her. Then with Yiqing Luo's support, he stood up. A pair of gentle like water, but filled with an irresistible imposing manner, looked at those villagers, as he spoke in a serious and sincere manner. Miss Yi and I appreciate your kind intentions. But your request, we can't do it. Little master, we've already decided. We've thought it through. You don't need to have any psychological pressure. The villagers immediately opened their mouths. Elder T nodded. Little master, this is the best choice for you, and for us. Gu Jingyu slowly shook his head. If I die under the Gu poison, your conscience will not be at ease. But if the entire village, because of me, die under Miss Ye's hands, how can I be at ease? He looked at those villagers. Thank you, for thinking for us, but we can't be that selfish. Young master, Elder T said anxiously, you still have a bright future ahead of you. We are just a bunch of old guys. Half of our bodies are under the ground. Even if we live, it is meaningless. Gu Jingyu's gaze was firm. Everyone lives in this world for a unique reason. No one lives without meaning. I can't let you die for my own life. Saying that, Gu Jingyu looked towards Yiqing Luo. Miss Yi, you cannot kill these villagers. Young master. The villagers shouted out one after another. Third Elder Miao couldn't help but laugh when he saw how they were trying to shirk the responsibility. How touching. Ha ha ha. Little girl, the final decision is in your hands. This elder is very curious. How will you choose? Ha ha ha. Everyone's vision was placed on Yiqing Luo. The villagers lowered their voices as they pleaded in a low voice, allowing Yiqing Luo to make a decision. Gu Jingyu shook his head at Yiqing Luo, determined not to let everyone die together because of his own poison. The scene was once again in an uproar. Chapter 24-23. When did I say that I want to kill these villagers? Yiqing Luo's clear voice was mixed with a hint of coldness. Her long and narrow eyes rose slightly as she glanced at Gu Jingyu. Gu Jingyu's expression stiffened slightly, as though he felt uncomfortable because of Yiqing Luo's words. And he pressed on his heart as he coughed hard. That pair of gentle eyes flashed past a trace of inexplicable grief. His heart felt as though there was a needle poking at it non-stop. Gu Jingyu gave a bitter smile as his lips twitched. Indeed. He had no place in her heart at all. When Yi Luo didn't deny it, the villagers misunderstood that they were husband and wife. He thought that he was infallible. She had a special place in Yi Luo's heart, a special existence. But in the end, he couldn't even be compared to these villagers. Looking at Gu Jingyu's inexplicable feeling, the surrounding atmosphere became desolate. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly. She didn't quite understand the change in Gu Jingyu's thoughts. She couldn't figure it out. She simply couldn't be bothered to think further. Instead she looked at those villagers. Don't say any more, I won't kill you for the so-called cure. Elder T frowned. Young lady, other than the Miao people, no one else in the world can cure the Miao people. We, this group of old fellows, appreciate your kind intentions. Yiqing Luo's pink lips rose slightly as she slowly walked towards Elder T. She raised her fair wrist and gently pressed the parcel that Elder T passed to her, pressing it back into Elder T's arms. This carries your feelings, carries your longing, you need to pass it to Grandma personally. Elder T was stunned, but young lady. Don't tell me, do you really want your own husband to die from the poison? Yiqing Luo looked at Gu Jingyu indifferently. He and I are just ordinary friends, he is not my husband. Elder T's mouth opened wider and wider. This time, Elder T didn't treat Yiqing Luo's explanation as Yiqing Luo being shy. But, even if he is not your husband, then. Some villagers opened their mouth apprehensively. Even if he was not this young lady's husband. But they let this young master be tortured to death by the goo poison just like that. They were the same, they couldn't accept it. Hearing Yiqing Luo's denial, Gu Jingyu's heart fell to the bottom. His entire body felt cold as if he was in an ice house. The goo poison in his body kept moving about in his internal organs. He is in pain. But it couldn't compare to the pain in his heart. Could it be, had he really fallen in love with this girl whom he had only met twice? Moreover, he had given his heart. Otherwise, why would he do that just because of a single sentence from this young girl? His heart ached to such an extent. There's no need for you to say anything more. If I wanted you to die, I wouldn't have saved you earlier. Since I've chosen to save you, I'll protect you till the end. Yiqing Luo raised her hand and calmly suppressed the villagers' uneasy words. Then, she looked at the man who had lost all support and was sitting powerlessly on the stone bench. As for young Master Gu, although he and I are just ordinary friends, he was poisoned to save me after all. Logically speaking, I can't just watch him die. Yiqing Luo's voice was calm and indifferent. It floated into Gu Jingyu's ears. It made Gu Jingyu's heart jump for no reason. Chapter 24-24. The third elder of Miao clan had heard their conversation. He looked at Yiqing Luo in disdain as he ridiculed, "Young lady, do you think that just because you can defeat me, you will be able to cure my goo poison? Thinking of protecting both sides? Do you really think there's such a beautiful thing in this world?" "I don't know if there's such a beautiful thing, but I know." Yiqing Luo raised her eyes and looked straight into third elder Miao's eyes. "You. No matter in which aspect, you're defeated by me." Her voice paused as she sneered, "Defeated by me, you're just a clown." Third elder Miao's face sunk as the anger in his chest continued to burn. Good. Good. You still want to be stubborn with me. I'll let you experience the power of the Miao family's goo worms. Third Elder Meow raised his palm. He took out a dagger and forcefully cut his palm. Fresh blood dripped down from his palm. He gave a sinister smile as he opened his palm. He started to recite the Meow tribe's incantation. As he recited, as he looked at Yiqing Luo's expression, he wanted to see Yiqing Luo panicking and begging for mercy. But Yiqing Luo's expression was as calm and indifferent as usual. Her gaze was extremely cold. There wasn't a trace of panic or fear. Instead, it was filled with a chilling cold glint and determination. Third Elder Meow's gaze and Yiqing Luo's eyes met for an instant. Yiqing Luo suddenly revealed an extremely light and enchanting smile. Third Elder Meow, you can threaten me because of the goo poison in Master Goo's body. If you want to use the goo poison to hurt Master Goo, then I will disregard everything and make a move against you. Third Elder Meow's mouth, which was reciting the incantation, suddenly paused. You dare? You can try if I dare. Yiqing Luo retorted with ridicule, as long as you activate the goo worm in his body, I have no worries. Anyway, as compared to Master Goo, you don't want to die. Third Elder Meow's face turned steely green as he stared at Yiqing Luo, as though he couldn't wait to tear her into pieces. However, he still cherished his life and stopped the incantation in his mouth. Gu Jingyu, who was sitting by the side, looked at Yiqing Luo in astonishment. Yiqing Luo's earlier words kept repeating in her mind. She was clearly just a young girl. Yet, he possessed such boldness. Although what she had said to him sounded so cold, Lin Mingya still felt that it was a pity. But, from her words, it was clear that she cared about him. However, if it was anyone else who said these words, they would have been shocked. It was very possible, that such an effect could not be achieved. He was also unable to suppress Third Elder Meow's aura. It was obviously Third Elder Meow who had something which could threaten Yiqing Luo. However, Third Elder Meow did not dare to act rashly. She was the only one who could be so domineering and overbearing. Furthermore, he had hit the nail on the head and pointed out Third Elder Meow's fear of death. It was clearly a disadvantage. Yet, he relied on his own aura. He had forcefully reversed the situation. Gu Jingyu's gaze towards Yiqing Luo became increasingly gentle, increasingly filled with some kind of feelings. Third Elder Meow, as for me, I have no intention to become enemies with the Meow tribe, but since I've bumped into this matter today, then I have no choice but to care about it. Moreover, doesn't Third Elder Meow like to implicate innocent people? Chapter 24-25. Third Elder Meow's face was ashen. If only he had known that this young girl was so powerful. No matter what, he would never drag this young girl into it. Looking at Yiqing Luo's smiling face, Third Elder Meow felt like spitting out a mouthful of blood in his heart. What exactly do you want? Third Elder Meow asked while gnashing his teeth. As soon as the words left his mouth, Third Elder Meow shut his mouth in annoyance. He couldn't help but slap his own mouth. Right now, he was clearly in control. It was him who could make use of the venomous worm to threaten Yiqing Luo into not daring to make a move on him. It should be Yiqing Luo who was afraid. But, after he asked this question, he forcefully lowered his aura by a notch. It had evolved into him, begging Yiqing Luo to give him a quick death. Handing the initiative over to Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's long and narrow eyes squinted slightly as she curled her lips sweetly and spoke in a calm voice. After all, you're also a member of the Meow tribe. As for me, naturally I can't kill you. Hearing this, Third Elder Meow's expression froze and his eyes brightened. That's right. I am an elder of the Meow tribe. I represent the entire Meow tribe. If you dare to touch me, you must, shut up. Yiqing Luo indifferently glanced at Third Elder Miao. His voice was cold and emotionless. Third Elder Miao's throat tightened, and he couldn't make a sound. Yiqing Luo slowly took a few steps forward. Third Elder Miao's body went limp, and he staggered backward, as though he was frightened by Yiqing Luo. His entire face was deathly pale. You cured young Master Gu's Gu poison and made the fiercest oath of the Miao tribe. You promised never to cause trouble for the Bu family village again. Yiqing Luo stated her request word by word. Her eyes were calm and her expression was indifferent. It was as if he was talking about something extremely ordinary. Why should I believe you? Third Elder Miao straightened his neck and glared at him. The only thing he could rely on now was the poison in Gu Jingyu's body. If he cured the Gu. Yiqing Luo had no more misgivings as she struck out at him. Yiqing Luo tilted her head, her long eyelashes fluttered like butterfly wings, because you have no choice. What do you mean? Third Elder Miao's face turned even paler, and he took a few more steps back, as though Yiqing Luo was a dreadful beast. Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards as she suddenly opened her palm towards Third Elder Miao. Third Elder Miao thought that Yiqing Luo was going to attack him. Ah! He immediately let out a loud cry. He dodged towards the Miao tribesmen who were standing still at the side. But Yiqing Luo instructed him to simply open his palm. It was very simple and very casual as he waved it at Third Elder Miao. It was a simple gesture. Instead, it seemed like he was mocking Third Elder Miao for making a fuss over nothing. Third Elder Miao felt that he had been played. She was angry and embarrassed. Just as he was about to help a Miao man to stand up, suddenly, his palm came into contact with something sharp. A bloody gash immediately appeared on his palm. Fresh blood flowed down his palm. Third Elder Miao retracted his hand in pain as he looked at the wound on his palm. It wasn't considered deep, but it was definitely not a shallow wound. He immediately looked towards the place where his palm had touched earlier in puzzlement. From this angle, through the bright light in the surroundings, Third Elder Miao saw it clearly. Beside that Miao man, there was an extremely thin ray of light. Chapter 24-26. What was that? Third Elder Miao's face turned pale as he trembled as he stretched out his hand, probing it. He then discovered that was a strand of extremely fine silver thread. Each strand of silver thread was as sharp as a blade. Under the illumination of the light, it reflected sparks, which made one dumbstruck. Third Elder Miao looked at that strand of silver thread in disbelief. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something. He abruptly turned his head back, looking behind him, at those Miao tribesmen who were unable to move. As expected, he could clearly see that every single Miao tribesman's body was wrapped with strand of silver thread. If one didn't look carefully, there was no way to tell. This was the reason why the Miao tribesmen were unable to move for so long. It wasn't that they didn't listen to him, but their limbs were bound, their bodies were bound. They had no way to move at all. When on earth, Third Elder Miao only felt his heart pounding in fear. His eyes were filled with shock as he slowly turned his head, looking at Yiqing Luo. His entire body was stiff, totally unable to twist. This young lady, when on earth, under the circumstances that he didn't know, using these silver threads to bind the Miao tribesmen, making them unable to resist. From the start till the end, he actually didn't have any sense. Yiqing Luo's lips curled slightly, as she looked at Third Elder Miao with a light smile. Her 5 fingers casually waved towards his open palm. Third Elder Meow saw it clearly. That bursts of silver cold glint scurried in front of his eyes. Those silver threads were all controlled by Yiqing Luo. Using her hands to control those strands of silver threads. This time, he was completely sure. It was this young lady. Under the circumstances where he didn't sense it at all. Restraining his 50 over Meow tribesmen. Third Elder Meow only felt cold sweat dripping down, as his entire body turned soft, almost unable to stand. Third Elder Meow, you're an intelligent person, so you should be clear that the current you has no conditions and qualifications to negotiate with me. Yiqing Luo shook her fingers. Those 50 over people who were restrained by the silver threads, uncontrollably, moved their hands. One after another, they stretched out their hands towards Third Elder Meow. Third Elder Meow angrily stamped his feet as he berated, "You dare to touch me? All of you stop. All of you stop for this elder." However, the Meow people had no way to control their own consciousness. No matter how much Third Elder Meow roared in anger. These people's hands uncontrollably reached for Third Elder Meow's neck. "I will cure him of the goo. I'll cure him." Third Elder Meow was scared out of his wits. He held his head in a sorry state and sat down on the ground, shouting loudly. Those pairs of hands were about to reach his neck. He stopped. Soon after, the pairs of hands slowly moved away. A path was revealed. Third Elder Meow is indeed an intelligent person. Yiqing Luo alluringly curled her lips as she gave a calm and indifferent smile. Her charming eyes were filled with indifference and coldness. "Then, let's get started." As soon as she finished speaking, all of a sudden, a black pill popped out from his fingertip. The medicine's words fell into Third Elder Meow's lips. It melted into Third Elder Meow's mouth. Third Elder Meow coughed loudly a few times and immediately raised his hand to dig his throat. But after retching a few times, he couldn't spit anything out. "What did you feed me?" Third Elder Meow clutched his neck as he stared sinisterly at Yiqing Luo. Chapter 24-27. Damn it. Now the person who lost more than he gained was him, his Meow tribe. He didn't know where Yiqing Luo got her face to say such words. Third Elder Meow clenched his teeth in anger. The expression on his face contorted into a sinister expression. It looked extremely terrifying. TSK. Third Elder Meow, could it be that? You don't believe that I've poisoned you? Yiqing Luo's little face was filled with doubt as she blinked her eyes. Third Elder Meow clenched his fists and did not reply. Yiqing Luo clicked her tongue as she continued on her own, "But, Third Elder Meow, it's better for you to choose to believe me. After all, in front of you, there's already Little Marquis and your Meow tribe's eldest young miss." As a warning. When Yiqing Luo mentioned Little Duke and eldest young Miss Meow, Third Elder Meow's face instantly turned pale as he raised his head in disbelief, staring at Yiqing Luo without blinking. You are. The news of Yiqing Luo being hunted down by the entire continent by the Battle King's manor had already caused an uproar in the Northern Waves continent. The Meow people were naturally aware of this matter. Meow Rongrong, the eldest daughter of the Meow tribe, was the one who cured Yuan Kuang's poison. The Meow tribe's people naturally knew the reason why the Battle King Manor was searching for Yiqing Luo in the entire continent. Not long ago, Lady Meow returned to the Meow Stockade village in a sorry state. Who knew what they discussed with the Meow tribe's leader? Young Miss Meow announced that she was going into seclusion and refused anyone's visit. The day of the Saintess selection was just around the corner. Young Miss Meow was determined to obtain the position of Holy Maiden. How could Miss Meow choose to go into seclusion at this critical juncture? Third Elder Meow had more or less heard about it. It was said that young Mistress Meow had been poisoned. He was poisoned at the War King's mansion. He thought of how the young prince had been poisoned. Third Elder Miao's body suddenly stiffened. Cold sweat dripped down uncontrollably from his entire body. Yiqing Luo looked at Third Elder Miao's expression and knew that he understood her words. Then, she rubbed her chin and clicked her tongue. Third Elder Miao, I've never been a patient person. Me. Release. Third Elder Miao's face was deathly pale, and he spat out each word in a flustered and exasperated manner. No matter what, he would never believe it. This young girl, is she really only 13 or 14 years old in front of me? Such an oppressive pressure. Such a fierce method. This was a threat that he couldn't resist and couldn't resist at all. Little by little. Third Elder Miao couldn't believe it from the bottom of his heart. But that was the truth. The truth was, indeed, he had no choice. He wanted to live. Compared to young Master Gu, he wanted to live more. He could only choose to take a gamble and believe in Yiqing Luo. He could only believe in Yiqing Luo. He watched as Third Elder Miao walked towards Gu Jingyu with a dark expression. Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a cold arc of ridicule. It was this kind of mental fortitude. He could even become an elder of the Miao tribe. Was she overestimating the Miao tribe? Third Elder Miao was very clear in his heart. The Gu poison in Gu Jingyu's body would bind him and Gu Jingyu together. Once he was hurt in any way, Gu Jingyu would suffer the same amount of damage. How could she really let the Miao tribesman strangle his neck? However, Third Elder Miao cherished his life. When he met with matters related to his life, he had completely lost all his rationality. This was a battle in his heart. Whose inner heart wasn't strong? Who would be toyed with in the palm of his hand? Chapter 24-28. She had grasped Third Elder Miao's weakness. And also grasped Third Elder Miao's weakness. Yiqing Luo wasn't worried that Third Elder Miao would play any tricks. After all, those two lessons learned from the mistakes of the past had already cast a psychological shadow on Third Elder Miao. Moreover, Gu Jingyu was the young matriarch of the Gu Feng sect. Naturally, he wasn't a stupid person. If Third Elder Miao really had a disloyal heart, Gu Jingyu should have sensed it. Yiqing Luo didn't bother about the two of them as she walked directly towards the Bu family village's villagers. Old grandpas, old ladies, later let Third Elder Miao promise you according to the Miao tribe's venomous oath, that he will not harass you anymore. In future, you don't need to worry about being harassed by the Miao tribe anymore. The villagers were so shocked by this turn of events that they couldn't react in time. It was just a matter of a moment. The Miao people who had always been aggressive, overbearing and unreasonable, were actually obediently submitting before this young lady. Furthermore, she even swore a venomous oath to return them a peaceful life. Plop! A sound of someone kneeling on the ground was heard. Old T's face was filled with tears as he knelt on the ground. Young lady, you're the entire village's benefactor. Thank you. Thank you. Originally they thought that today was because of their Bu family village, implicating this innocent young lady. They had not expected that. This young lady had saved the entire village. Yiqing Luo hurriedly knelt down on one knee and helped Old T up. Old Grandpa, didn't I ask for a pot of tea from you? Those villagers also started to kneel down. They all thanked Yiqing Luo for her help. How could Yiqing Luo accept so many elderly kowtows? She immediately activated her profound energy and dragged their kneeling bodies. Old grandpas, old ladies, if you really want to thank me, in future when I come to the Bu family village, please brew me the best tea. Yiqing Luo helped Old T up. Old Grandpa, I have some matters regarding Grandma Bu which I want to ask you. Old T raised his sleeve and wiped the tears off his face. Young lady, ask. As long as I know something, I will tell you everything without reservation. The Meow tribe kept robbing you, just to find one person. Who is that person? Why are the Meow tribe looking for that person? Unless it was someone very important to the Meow tribe, or someone very important to the Meow tribe. Why would the Meow tribe use such a method to find that person? Moreover, the Meow people seemed to be very certain. The person they were looking for was in the Bu family village. Elder T was stunned as his gaze went past Yi Qing Luo and looked towards third Elder Miao, who was helping Gu Jingyu to cure the Gu Gu. His dry lips slightly pursed. To be honest, we really don't know who the Meow people are looking for. If we knew, we would not have endured the Meow people's plundering and brutal killings time and time again. The other villagers nodded in agreement. I've always felt that the Meow people are deliberately using this as an excuse to plunder our resources. We also want to know, who exactly are the Meow people looking for, why that person is not standing out. After the villager finished speaking, he hurriedly explained, I'm not asking that person to step forward and throw away his life. It's just that, the villagers of the Bu family village have suffered too much because of that person. More than 10 villagers have died. We should at least have the right to know. Yi Qing Luo nodded, expressing her understanding. Listening to the dozens of villagers talking at once, Lin Fan felt a chill run down his spine. Chapter 24-29. Almost certain. The Bu family village's people were indeed not sure who the Meow tribesmen were looking for. But the Meow tribesmen were certain that the person they were looking for was in the Bu family village. Looked like they could only wait for third Elder Miao to cure Gu Jingyu's Gu before they could get some information from him. About the time it took to brew a cup of tea. Third Elder Miao wiped his forehead full of sweat as he panted heavily as he sat heavily on the ground. His black short shirt was already soaked in sweat. Yi Qing Luo walked over quickly as she looked at Gu Jingyu. Gu Jingyu's face wasn't as pale as before. His breathing had also calmed down. His furrowed brows from the pain and the uncontrollable coughing had also been smoothed out. Seeing Yi Qing Luo looking at him, Gu Jingyu gave a gentle smile as he slowly shook his head. I feel much better now. It should be because the Gu has been cured. Yi Qing Luo was assured as she glanced sideways at third Elder Miao. Met with her gaze. Third Elder Miao instinctively crawled back a few steps. He had deeply experienced Yi Qing Luo's boldness and methods. As long as he could live on, he didn't need any integrity. His Gu. I've already cured it, quickly give me the antidote. Third Elder Miao's voice was still trembling. Yi Qing Luo's pink lips curled as she raised her index finger and shook it at him. No hurry. Third Elder Miao's face turned pale. What else do you want to do? Also, use your Meow tribe's most vicious method. Promise that you will never harass the Bu family village again. Yi Qing Luo said calmly. His casual tone almost caused third Elder Miao's throat to taste a fishy sweetness, and he almost spat out blood. He suppressed his anger as he gritted his teeth and took a deep breath. All right. I promise. He was about to raise his finger as he made a perfunctory vow, but was stopped by Yi Qing Luo's hand. Third Elder Miao frowned impatiently. What on earth are you? Before he could finish his words, Third Elder Miao saw Yi Qing Luo barehandedly grabbing a tribesman from among those Miao tribesmen. The Miao tribe's most venomous oath, or perhaps curse. If Third Elder Miao isn't using the Miao tribe's venomous oath, then I'll let you personally experience what a venomous oath is. Yi Qing Luo's threatening voice rang beside his ear. That Miao tribesman almost cried from fright. His body trembled as he met Third Elder Miao's warning glare. The Miao tribesman froze. In the next instant, a soft hand gently rested on his shoulder. Beside his ear, the girl's clear and cold voice said, You have to think about it carefully. I'm not someone you can casually threaten. The Meow tribesman did not know if he had fallen for the honey trap. He was still awed by Yiqing Luo's boldness. He nodded repeatedly. I don't dare to hide anything. I will tell you the truth. Third Elder Meow stomped his feet in anger. His vicious gaze landed on the tribesman. But Yiqing Luo directly rebutted, why? Looking at Third Elder Meow's expression, it seemed that he didn't want to swear according to my request. Since that's the case, then I'll... No, how could that be? I'll swear right now, according to the Meow tribe's most venomous method. Third Elder Meow immediately opened his mouth as he speedily bit his finger and took out a strange-shaped goo worm. Following that, according to the Meow tribe's method, he gave his promise in front of everyone. Chapter 24:30. Third Elder Meow's hand which was holding on to that goo worm paused as he raised his head abruptly. You can't do this. Not only could he not find trouble with the Boo family village, he still had to protect the Boo family village from other troubles. This meant that his plan to use other channels to slaughter the Boo family village had been blocked. This slut. Why did she seem to be able to guess what he was thinking about? Yiqing Luo only smiled at him. She didn't say anything. Her smile was sweet, but it made that not breathtaking and could only be described as elegant, revealing a bit of enchanting look. But in Third Elder Meow's heart, a surge of terror and fear arose. He trembled slightly as he looked at that extremely faint smile. He closed his eyes, gritted his teeth, and spat out a few words, "Fine. Count it on me." Yiqing Luo nodded in satisfaction. Now, can you give me the antidote? There was a poison in his body which he couldn't detect. Third Elder Meow was extremely terrified and frightened. Afraid that he would become like Yuan Kuang. And afraid that he would end up like Meow Rongrong, choosing to go into closed-door cultivation to detoxify. Yiqing Luo raised her finger and shook it. Third Elder Meow shut his eyes tightly, already used to Yiqing Luo going back on her words. Tell me your request clearly. I just want to find out something from you. Yiqing Luo walked to the stone table and sat down. Let's sit down and talk slowly. Third Elder Meow's legs were wobbly. How would he dare to move? Yiqing Luo didn't force him to sit down. Instead, he poured a cup of tea for Gu Jingyu and a cup for himself. Her actions were leisurely. Every action affected the hearts of the Meow people, following Yiqing Luo's actions. Third Elder Meow felt that he had aged by more than 10 years today. After Yiqing Luo finished pouring the tea, she opened her mouth slowly. Who is the person you're looking for in the Boo family village? Third Elder Meow's face turned pale. This is the Meow family's internal affairs. But, it involves the Boo family village, then it's not an internal affair. Yiqing Luo sneered. Third Elder Meow averted his gaze. Other than this matter, I can tell you everything else that I know. What I want to know is this matter. Yiqing Luo didn't give in at all and was overbearing. She knew that the person the Meow tribe was looking for must be the internal affairs of the Meow tribe, and also the Meow tribe's secret. Otherwise, with the status of the Meow tribe in the Northern Waves continent, they wouldn't be able to survive. They could totally search for the person the Meow people were looking for, just like how Battle King General searched for her. Third Elder Meow's expression turned ugly. He knew clearly how difficult it was to deal with Yiqing Luo. But he had not expected Yiqing Luo to be so difficult to deal with. The person that the Meow tribe was looking for was related to the future development of the Meow tribe. If this girl found out, it would definitely destroy the peace of the Meow tribe. This kind of demon must not be allowed to set her target on the Meow tribe. Third Elder Meow would rather die than submit, huh? Yiqing Luo laughed in ridicule. it's rare that Third Elder Meow has such backbone. Then I shall fulfill Third Elder Meow's wish, to sacrifice myself to protect the Meow tribe's secret. Saying that, she put down the teacup in her hands, stood up and said to Gu Jingyu, Master Gu, let's go. Gu Jingyu had regained his energy by now, even his complexion was back to normal. Hearing Yiqing Luo's words, he cooperated and stood up, following behind her. The two of them had barely walked a few steps. Chapter 24:31. Young lady. The Meow people were looking for a 14-year-old young lady. Why must she be 14 years old? A 14-year-old young lady can be found anywhere. Why must they run over to the Bu family village, which is filled with old grandpas and aunties? Yiqing Luo voiced out her doubts. Third Elder Meow's gaze was wavering. On his face, it was obvious that he was struggling. As though he was hesitating if he should say these things out. But he recalled what Yiqing Luo said, that his patience was not good. He was worried that Yiqing Luo would get impatient. In the end, he was defeated by the fear of death. It's not that a 14-year-old young lady can do it, but... Third Elder Meow clenched his fists tightly as his gaze turned towards those Meow people who were tied up. In his eyes, a sliver of murderous intent was fleeting. Following that, Third Elder Meow raised his head, as though he had made his final decision. He looked at Yiqing Luo without blinking. That 14-year-old young lady is the Meow tribe's traitor. According to the clues provided by the Meow tribe, after that traitor escaped from the Meow tribe, she hid in the Bu family village. After that, there was no more news of that traitor. So, that traitor's clues must be related to the Bu family village. When Third Elder Meow said this, he paused slightly. Since she's a traitor, why did you only come to the Bu family village to investigate? If she's really a traitor, wouldn't the Meow tribe have already asked the royal family or the Qinhua sect to step out? Yiqing Luo's smile rose slightly as she looked at Third Elder Meow with a smile which didn't look like a smile. I don't like to beat around the bush. Third Elder Meow better say it in the most straightforward way. Seeing her smile, Third Elder Meow's face turned black as he immediately said, that young lady is indeed a traitor. She stole our Meow tribe's most sacred ancient goo worm. Ancient goo worm. Yiqing Luo remembered that it was written in the information that Peach had given her. Ancient goo worm, that was the symbol of the Meow tribe. It was actually stolen. That traitor used the ancient goo worm and hid in the Bu family village. After that, we lost all contact. Even the Meow tribe's witchcraft has no way to trace the traitor's whereabouts. Third Elder Meow said, the matter of the ancient goo worm being stolen must not be spread at such a crucial juncture like the Saint's selection. Otherwise, the Meow clansmen will definitely panic. Therefore, the higher-ups gave me a private order to go to the Bu family village to find that traitor and retrieve the ancient goo worm. But the villagers said that they don't know who the person you're looking for is. In this village, if a 14-year-old young lady really came, how could they not remember? Yiqing Luo raised her doubts. This, I don't know either. The order I received was to force that traitor to show himself in the Bu family village. The third elder shook his head hurriedly. It's not that I'm hiding anything, but, although we are elders, we don't have any real power in the Meow tribe. Most of the internal affairs of the Meow tribe, especially those related to the future of the Meow tribe, the Meow tribe wouldn't let me know too much. These words were not false. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly. Do you know who that traitor is? Chapter 24:32. Yiqing Luo nodded thoughtfully. Third Elder Meow could not wait any longer. The fear and uneasiness in his heart rose to the peak. I've told you everything. I've done everything you asked of me. Now, give me the antidote. Antidote? Yiqing Luo raised her brows. Third Elder Meow was so anxious that his entire face was twisted into a bowl. Little ancestor. I really told you everything. Hurry up and give me the antidote. Can you please? The more anxious he was. Third Elder Meow felt waves of intense pain in his abdomen. He was extremely flustered. Thinking of Yuan Kuang's tragic state. He almost cried. The smile on Yiqing Luo's face gradually enlarged in Third Elder Meow's pupils. She chuckled and said, "What antidote? You really believed it?" Third Elder Meow stopped crying. For a moment, he could not wrap his head around it. Yiqing Luo covered her mouth as she burst out laughing. Third Elder Meow, I merely fed you it's just a pill which helps in detoxifying your body. Just squat in the latrine for 1 or 2 days and you'll be fine. You. Third Elder Meow's heart was filled with fear and unease. At this moment, he was actually told that it was just a joke. And he was in this joke. He allowed Yiqing Luo to knead him as he obediently answered all of her questions. You still have the energy to settle accounts with me. Yiqing Luo smiled as she pointed at Third Elder Meow's tummy. Be careful, don't drop it on your pants. Og. Third Elder Meow indeed didn't have the energy to settle the scores with Yiqing Luo. His stomach rumbled like an avalanche. Unable to bear it any longer, he pointed his finger at Yiqing Luo forcefully in the air. Then, he hugged his stomach and quickly fled. The remaining 50-odd Meow people were all abandoned here by Third Elder Meow. You really, just gave it to him. Gu Jingyu looked at Third Elder Meow's expression and could not help but laugh. He had never expected this. Yiqing Luo actually used the medicinal pills made from croton as poison to coax Third Elder Meow. This was a psychological battle. Yiqing Luo had obtained a complete victory. Yiqing Luo smiled as she shrugged her shoulders. He's so gullible, I'm also very helpless. The smile on Gu Jingyu's lips became increasingly gentle. But Yiqing Luo didn't appreciate his warm smile. Instead, he walked directly to Elder T and said, the Meow people will not come to the Bu family village to harass you anymore, and Third Elder Meow will protect the safety of the Bu family village. You can rest assured. Old-time T was in a trance. Even when Yiqing Luo was talking to him, he didn't really understand. He just casually replied with a his eyes staring ahead without any focus. The villagers behind him expressed their gratitude one after another. Yiqing Luo responded with a smile. He followed Elder T's gaze and looked over. He saw the Meow tribesman frozen on the spot, unable to move. She gently patted Elder T's hand and smiled. These Meow people are used to following the Third Elder and doing evil. They have also bullied the Bu family village many times. Now, they are meat on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. If you want to take revenge, Elder T was stunned. The villagers behind him who were expressing their gratitude were also stunned. Kill those Meow people. Seek revenge for their Bu family village's dead villagers? Seek revenge for the humiliation they had suffered in the hands of the Meow people? Chapter 2433. Yiqing Luo saw the expressions of the villagers. She curled her lips slightly as her voice became gentle. Of course, all of this depends on your own thoughts. The villagers looked at those Meow people. Then they looked at the surrounding villagers. After a while, an old villager in his 60s suddenly picked up his hoe and rushed over. Why didn't you kill them? They are not good people. They killed the innocent and bullied us. A villager rushed up. The other villagers couldn't hold it in any longer. They all carried their hoes and followed him. There were still some villagers who were filled with apprehension as they stood on the spot, hesitating and uneasy. Those indignant villagers. They were all in the past. The villagers who almost lost their lives in the hands of the Miao people. And quite a number of their loved ones had died in the hands of the Miao people. To the Miao people. How could these villagers not hate them? 10 over villagers raised their hoes and hit one of the Miao people with all their might. Those Miao people were firmly restrained by the silver wires and had no way to resist or evade. They bore the pain of the villagers' hoes smashing onto their bodies. The villagers vented the anger in their hearts. But just as one of the villagers was about to smash the head of one of the Miao people with his hoe, that villager was unable to make his move. The rest of the villagers also stopped their actions of punching the Miao people. They looked towards that villager. That villager raised his hoe up high as his entire body tensed up and turned stiff. After some time, that villager suddenly let out a sorrowful and indignant howl. Ah. He used strength and threw the hoe in his hand onto the ground. His wrinkled face was filled with tears. I can't do it. I can't do it. They are all living people. If I were to avenge my loved ones who died in their hands and kill them, then what's the difference between me and them? No matter how much hatred and resentment, the villagers still couldn't kill them. The rest of the villagers were the same. They only wanted to beat the Miao people up, to vent the pain and anger from being bullied for such a long time. But they had never thought of killing them. One by one, the villagers threw down the hoes in their hands. Forget it. Little girl, you've already taught Third Elder Miao a lesson on our behalf, and you've also made Third Elder Miao swear a poison oath. That's enough. The villager who was the first to rush up smashed his hoe on the ground. Just leave them here and let them fend for themselves. The villager's choice could be said to be within Yiqing Luo's expectations. The villagers were kind to begin with. They were just ordinary people. How could they be like the Miao people or other Xian practitioners, viewing human lives as worthless? Just as you said, leave them here. Whether they live or die will depend on their luck. Yiqing Luo smiled faintly as she didn't persuade the villagers to harden their hearts and kill these Miao people to get rid of all future troubles. Anyway, this group of Miao people. However, he had seen Third Elder Miao's sorry state and humiliation today. Furthermore, he had personally witnessed Third Elder Miao betraying the Miao tribe. How could the Third Elder of the Miao tribe possibly let them live, and return to the Miao tribe? These people would die sooner or later. So don't let these Miao people who were worse than beasts disturb the hearts of the Bu family villagers. Chapter 24-34. Yiqing Luo turned her head back and saw Elder T hugging the things in his arms tightly. The expression on his face was extremely solemn. Yiqing Luo was stunned for a moment and smiled. All right. Elder T walked straight to the small wooden house next to the tea shed. Just as he stepped one foot in, he suddenly thought of something and paused again. He looked at Gu Jingyu, who was treating the injured muscles and bones of the villagers who were kicked by the Miao tribesmen. Young master, please wait here for a while. Elder T said apologetically. Gu Jingyu raised his head and revealed a warm smile as he shook his head. No problem, I'll wait for you here. Elder T walked into the wooden house. Yiqing Luo took a look at Gu Jingyu and looked at those injured villagers. She took out a few bottles of medicine for external injuries from the profound phoenix ring and passed it to Gu Jingyu. Sorry to trouble you. Her clear and gentle voice was as elegant as water. In an instant, it made his heart jump uncontrollably. He stretched out his hand and received the medicine bottle from Yiqing Luo. Their fingers touched. Gu Jingyu's face floated a tinge of red. He quickly received the medicine bottle and turned around, looking at the villagers in front of him. Yiqing Luo had no feelings for Gu Jingyu. Naturally, she didn't notice Gu Jingyu's emotions. She totally didn't notice that Gu Jingyu had a different feeling towards her. After Yiqing Luo gave him the medicine, she directly walked into Elder T's wooden house. She just walked in. The wooden door behind her was shut tightly. Elder T walked to the table with a solemn face and placed those little things and paintings on the table. "Young lady, although this is the first time we met, but I believe you. You are a kind-hearted good lady." Elder T said seriously, "So, this matter. I'm only telling you alone." Yiqing Luo sat by the side and from Elder T's words, she heard some deeper meaning. "What you want to say is related to that Miao tribe traitor which third elder Miao mentioned?" Elder T's expression revealed an obvious astonishment. After some time, he nodded, "Yes." Third elder Miao said, "That young lady reached Bu family village and disappeared. Do you know who that young lady is?" Yiqing Luo's interest was piqued as she placed both hands on the table and asked him seriously. Miao tribe's matter. She actually didn't have any intention of getting involved. But her purpose in coming to the Northern Wave continent was to take away the person with the best goose skill in the Miao tribe and bring him back to the West continent. Miao Rongrong's personality. Even if she was in the palm of her hand, Yiqing Luo still doubted Miao Rongrong's ability. And this, he made the entire Miao tribe search for the young girl with the ancient goo worm. Perhaps, he could also help her. Most importantly, she had made Miao Rongrong look like that. With Miao Rongrong's personality, she would definitely not let the matter rest. Rather than waiting for Miao Rongrong to cause trouble for her, it would be better to think of a way to stop Miao Rongrong from finding trouble with her. So, the matter of the Miao tribe searching for this young girl, she was determined to take care of it. Actually, the Miao people kept coming to the Bu family village to look for someone. At first, I really didn't know who they were looking for, because the Bu family village had never seen such a young girl. They were passing by the Bu family village. Most of them were married women. She followed her husband to the holy spring to pray for a child. However, when third elder Miao mentioned hiding in the Bu family village with an ancient goo worm, I thought of someone. Chapter 24:35. Young lad. Third elder Miao said it was a young lady. But the one who brought the goo worm was a young lad. Third elder Miao was such a timid person, he wouldn't dare to lie to her at that critical juncture. It was even more impossible for Elder T to lie to her. Could it be that young lady, in order to avoid the Miao people's pursuit? So, she deliberately disguised as a man to confuse them. That young lad is a very intelligent and quick-witted person, and my wife, son and daughter-in-law liked him very much. He paused, as though he was recalling the past. My grandchildren are brothers with that young lad, and their relationship is very close. I also treated him as my second grandson. Then why did she only stay in the Bu family village for half a month? Yiqing Luo could tell that Elder T really liked that young lad. Elder T shook his head. That day, he left in a hurry, and only had time to say goodbye to us before he left in a hurry. After that, I have never seen him again. Speaking of this, Elder T suddenly recalled something. When he came to say goodbye, my wife couldn't bear to let him go. He'd said he must leave, otherwise the Bu family village will be destroyed because of him. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly. In her mind, a light flashed past. She seemed to have thought of something as her lips curled into a faint smile. When did Grandma Bu leave the village? About 7 to 8 days after that young lad left the village. The Miao people who were originally circling around the Bu family village directly rushed to the Bu family village, wantonly plundering their resources, humiliating the villagers. Elder T's fist clenched tightly. Towards the Miao people, he had always harbored hatred. The Miao people came once every 3 days, became once every 2 days, and after that, they came every day to create trouble. The young villagers couldn't stand it, so they brought their families and fled to the big city. At that time, my son and daughter-in-law also escaped. The two of them brought their 2 children and headed to Chinua City. Thinking that after they had settled down in Chinua City, they would come to the Bu family village to fetch us. But, after waiting for a month, an entire month, those villagers who fled to the big city, all went missing, my son. My daughter-in-law all went missing. Elder T's voice was choked with emotion. Yiqing Luo's eyes sunk a little. The people of the Miao tribe were certain that the person they were searching for was in the Bu family village. How could they let the villagers of the Bu family village leave? Those villagers who had formed teams to escape to the big city, there was no more news. It was highly possible that he had been killed by the Miao people. This was only Yiqing Luo's guess. Naturally, she wouldn't say it out loud. After all, the villagers here all had the thought of fleeing to the big city with their sons and daughters. They had been supporting themselves and staying in the Bu family village to wait for their loved ones. Moreover, Yiqing Luo still had some doubts in her heart. Back then, when old T's son and daughter-in-law fled the Bu family village with their children, if he was really killed by the Miao people, then, how could Grandma Bu's grandson and granddaughter be killed by Yuan Kuang in Happy Heart City? A guess, it was just a guess. We couldn't get any news from our family, so, this old woman secretly left the Bu family village and went to Chinua City to look for our son. Until now, one by one, they had all lost contact. Elder T was actually a little panicked. But he always looked on the bright side. Chapter 24:36. If Third Elder Miao hadn't mentioned the ancient goo worm just now, I might not have connected the young lady that the Miao people were searching for with that young man. Elder T sighed. When he first came to my house, he was covered in wounds. He held a fist-sized bug in his arms like it was a treasure. I had never thought that it would be the Miao tribe's goo worm. The young lad also said that the worm was the only thing that his mother left for him. In that case, the person that the Miao people were looking for should be the young man that Old Time T mentioned. And the Miao people said that it was a 14-year-old girl. In that case, her previous guess of a woman disguised as a man was established. Little girl, I will only tell you about this matter. If you have the chance, you can find that little fellow, cough. Little girl, tell her not to return to the Bu family village, and don't think about coming to the Bu family village to see me. Elder T said what was on her mind and suddenly felt much more relaxed. From the moment Third Elder Miao mentioned the symbol of the person he was looking for, his heart had always been on tenterhooks. Third Elder Miao spoke. The more certain he was, the more certain he was. The person the Miao people were looking for was the young lad who had stayed in his house for half a month. Tell this little girl these secrets. It wasn't just because the little girl had saved the Bu family village. But he believed. If it was this little girl would definitely help the young man. Yiqing Luo was stunned. Don't you blame her for disturbing the peace of the Bu family village? If it wasn't for her, the Miao people wouldn't have harassed the Bu family village. Elder T, on the other hand, cracked a smile. It was a kind and warm smile. She once brought our Bu family village precious joy. In my heart, I've long regarded her as family, so how could I blame her? Elder T's words warmed Yiqing Luo's heart. The simple Bu family village. The villagers were simple and honest. Fortunately, she had come to the Bu family village today. She protected the Bu family. Only then did he not let these kind and gentle people get hurt. Yiqing Luo's eyelashes fluttered slightly. Her smile was extremely gentle. If I see her, I will help her. After hearing Yiqing Luo's words, Elder T's solemn expression finally relaxed. He sighed heavily and a guilty expression appeared on his face. I'm sorry, I used your kindness. But, other than you, I don't know who else to tell this secret to. Yiqing Luo gently curved her pink lips. It's not considered as using. Actually, if the person you're talking about is really the young girl that third Elder Miao mentioned, then I have my reasons for looking for her. Elder T didn't care what Yiqing Luo's motive was, he still smiled. You can protect her for me. The two of them exchanged a few more words. Outside the door, the sound of the villagers shouting for food could be heard. Only then did the two walk out of the wooden house. The tea shed was already filled with plate after plate of dishes. Although it didn't look beautiful, it made people feel warm. The villagers took advantage of the time when she was talking to Elder T and Gu Jingyu was treating the injured. The dishes were specially made by him. It was already made from the best materials in the Bu family village. Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a smile as she followed the villagers to their seats. This meal, Yiqing Luo ate extremely comfortably. After the meal, Yiqing Luo bade farewell to the villagers and prepared to leave. If she didn't return. Chapter 24:37. Furthermore, she should go back to settle the matters at the Battle King's residence. The injured villagers were all bandaged up. They would be back to normal after a few days of recuperation. Those Miao tribesmen who were restrained by the silver wires, Yiqing Luo was prepared to bring them to that small forest. Under the grateful gazes of the villagers, the two of them were sent to the village entrance. Yiqing Luo halted her footsteps as she looked at Elder T. Old Grandpa, you really don't intend to go to Qinghua City? Elder T lowered his head as he shook his head slowly, not going. If it's possible, help me pass this letter to this old woman. He took out a crumpled letter from his bosom. Apparently, it wasn't just written. It was a letter which he had written for a long time. Yiqing Luo received the letter and kept it solemnly. I will definitely pass the letter to her. On the way back to Qinghua City, Gu Jingyu had been trying to find a topic as he tried to find out about Yiqing Luo's news. On account that Gu Jingyu had suffered from third Elder Miao's venom in order to save her, Yiqing Luo replied to a few simple questions. But towards the end, Gu Jingyu had already asked about her family situation. Yiqing Luo finally sensed that something was amiss. Although her EQ wasn't considered high. But if she didn't sense wrongly, this Gu Feng sect's young matriarch seemed to be interested in her. Inquiring about her family situation. Was he intending to propose marriage? This thought made Yiqing Luo felt as though she was struck by lightning. It should be. She was too narcissistic. After all, the face she had changed was not considered as a great beauty. With Gu Jingyu's status as a young matriarch, he should have seen all kinds of beauties. Cough. Yiqing Luo cleared her throat as she stopped in her tracks. Gu Jingyu, who was inquiring about Yiqing Luo's family situation, also stopped in his tracks as he looked at her warmly. That gaze seemed as though he could only tolerate her alone in this world. Yiqing Luo shuddered. That young matriarch Gu. Can I ask you a question? Gu Jingyu's eyes brightened slightly, and the smile on his face was tinged with a hint of joy. I asked you so many questions, so you can naturally ask me back. Are you? Yiqing Luo deliberated over her words, interested in me. Gu Jingyu's smile froze, and a suspicious blush appeared on his face. He frantically shifted his gaze away, not daring to look at Yiqing Luo. He seemed to have not expected that she would expose his thoughts so straightforwardly. Gu Jingyu's expression made Yiqing Luo feel that there was nothing left to live for. Oh no, oh no. This was obviously true. She had hit the nail on the head. She had already changed her appearance, yet she could still attract the attention of men. Could it be that her charisma was that strong? Yiqing Luo scratched the back of her head. If you're really interested in me, it's better to dispel this idea as soon as possible. Why? Gu Jingyu raised his head abruptly as his thin lips pursed slightly. Miss Yi, although I'm Gu Feng sect's young matriarch, but I'm not the same as those hedonistic sons. He anxiously tried to explain himself as his face bore a rare serious look. My background is clean and I don't have any other women by my side. Moreover, I've always felt that true love and liking should only be given to one person. If you're able to be with me, I promise you, I will absolutely not take in concubines. Cough cough cough. Yiqing Luo was so frightened that she started coughing violently. Chapter 24:38. Gu Jingyu's face turned pale as though he had been struck by lightning, staring at Yiqing Luo in disbelief. Yiqing Luo rubbed her forehead as she sighed helplessly. Do I look like someone who doesn't have a fiancé? No. No. Gu Jingyu took some time before he found back his voice as his face was still pale. Only. I'm very surprised, you've already betrothed yourself to a fiancé. Looking at Gu Jingyu's expression, which had suffered a huge blow, Yiqing Luo didn't want to reveal any more hot news. She only nodded her head casually. Following that, she persuaded him earnestly, so, young sect master Gu, your future is infinitely bright, so you shouldn't just place your sights on me alone. Just like what you said, you don't have any other ladies by your side, so when you see me, you will have a different feeling towards me. Actually, this isn't what you think of as love and like. But this was their first meeting and they didn't spend much time together. Yiqing Luo didn't think that Gu Jinyu's feelings towards her were that deep. At most, he was just interested. She had to cut off Gu Jinyu's interest towards her as soon as possible. To Gu Jinyu, to her, it had to be better. Most importantly, her Xian was a moving vinegar jar. One Zhu Wu Axayan had already made Xian extremely unhappy. If there was another Gu Jingyu, Xian would probably tie her to his side. Recalling that Xiao Wu had already gone to the upper realm to tell Xian about the matters in the northern continent, there was a possibility that Xian would be back soon. Before Xian returned, this peach blossom must be cut off. Cut off without leaving any traces behind. Just as Yiqing Luo was cursing incessantly in her heart, Gu Jingyu's expression instantly turned extremely gloomy. His brows were filled with grief. It had long lost its usual warmth. His fingers clenched tightly as his eyes, which were like the vast stars, were slightly red. You're not me, so how would you know if I love and like you? His voice was filled with the pain he was enduring, as though he was complaining about Yiqing Luo's cruelty. Yiqing Luo's throat tightened as she looked at the pale-faced man with red eyes, speechless. Indeed, she wasn't Gu Jingyu. She was unable to stand on Gu Jingyu's position to judge his feelings. However, Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips as her alluring eyes lifted up slightly, meeting his reddened eyes. Sorry, my heart is very small and can only accommodate my fiancé alone. Gu Jingyu clenched his fists even tighter by his side. His fingertips had already turned white. Yiqing Luo could only pretend not to see it. Sometimes, giving the other party hope when there was no hope was truly cruel. She faintly said, "Many thanks for blocking Third Elder Miao's insect poison for me in the Bu family village. I will remember this kindness." With that, she turned around and walked towards the other side of the city gate. Gu Jingyu opened his mouth several times, wanting to chase after her and call her. But when the words reached the tip of his tongue, recalling Yiqing Luo's cold gaze earlier, all the words were stuck in his throat. Finally, the hand that was stretched out in mid-air slowly lowered. It was as if he had lost all his strength. By the time Yiqing Luo returned to the basement of the Peach Blossom restaurant, it was already very late. Smelling Yiqing Luo's scent nearing, Kitty Lee was the first to scurry out as she held onto Yiqing Luo's arm. "Sister, you're finally back." Yiqing Luo rubbed Kitty Lee's little head. "I've made you worried." Kitty Lee rubbed her head against her body. Chapter 24:39. Yiqing Luo grinned as she rubbed Kitty Lee's head. "Well done, my little kitty." Kitty Lee smiled contentedly at the compliment. "What kind of messy plan are you making in the dark again?" Suddenly, the door in front of them opened and a slender and tall figure walked out. Jun Qingwu was dressed in a lotus-colored brocade long dress, which accentuated her temperament and made her look extremely charming. Seeing Jun Qingwu, Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up as she hugged Kitty Lee and went forward. "Little Wu, when did you come back?" she just went over. Jun Qingwu had already raised her hand and placed it on Yiqing Luo's forehead. "Ayaya, little Wu, a day apart feels like 3 years, don't be so heartless." Yiqing Luo blinked her long and narrow eyes as she scurried towards Jun Qingwu again. Looking at such a shameless sister, Kitty Lee couldn't bear to look at her. She used her claws to cover her eyes and scurried out of Yiqing Luo's arms. Her arms no longer had the soft touch of a kitten. Yiqing Luo directly opened her arms and pounced towards Jun Qingwu. "Stop!" Jun Qingwu stopped Yiqing Luo and rolled her eyes before turning around and walked into the room. Yiqing Luo's smile widened as her brows were dyed with a dimple. She quickly caught up. Entering the room, Jun Qingwu flicked her sleeves and a light breeze closed the door. "Little Wu." Yiqing Luo sat opposite Jun Qingwu with a smile. That deliberately prolonged ending made Jun Qingwu's petite body tremble as she looked at her in disgust. "You want to ask about the overlord, right?" Yiqing Luo smiled even more brilliantly. "You're indeed little Wu, you can even guess someone's heart so accurately." Jun Qingwu rolled her eyes again. "It's written all over your face, do you need me to guess?" This means that someone treats little Wu as one of their own. Everything is written on your face, that's the trust in little Wu. Yiqing Luo's curved eyes were filled with a pool of spring water. Jun Qingwu. In order to know the news of the overlord in the upper realm, little Qing Luo, you don't even want your integrity. This thick-skinned, he was really shameless. Jun Qingwu didn't keep Yiqing Luo in suspense. "I have indeed met the overlord, and the matter of Miao family colluding with the people from the upper realm has already been told to the overlord. He asked me to tell you that as long as he's around, there's no need to worry about other unnecessary factors. Just go ahead and do things your own way." After conveying this message, the corner of Jun Qingwu's mouth twitched. She couldn't imagine, once the overlord and Shao Qing were together, just how lovey-dovey would they become. These two people clearly hadn't even met face to face. They were clearly separated by a plane. She was even fed a mouthful of dog food for no reason. However, when Jun Qingwu looked at the young girl in front of her, that pair of charming eyes gradually lit up after listening to her words. She took a deep breath. "Fine, if I'm fed dog food, so be it." He had to get used to it. "Little Wu, then did he say when he'll be back?" Yiqing Luo's eyelashes fluttered slightly, revealing the nervousness in her heart. Jun Qingwu remained silent for a moment. His matters in the upper realm have not been settled. After he's settled those matters, he'll be back immediately. Yiqing Luo's face flashed past a sliver of disappointment. Chapter 24:40. Yiqing Luo covered her face, which was pinched in pain. Her emotions were still somewhat unstable. There was no sign of the joyous spirit when she saw Jun Qingwu earlier. She stretched out her arm and placed it on the table, immediately placing her face on the table. She felt the cold touch of the table, soaking through her skin. Yiqing Luo sighed helplessly. Xiao Wu Wu, ah Xian he. What is his identity? Is he in the upper realm? The same as in Nirvana realm. A highly respected person. Junqing Wu was about to comfort her when she paused. Her cold and elegant face froze for a moment. Junqing Wu's emotions changed very quickly. Yiqing Luo was feeling lost and had not raised her head to discover the change in Junqing Wu's expression. She heard Junqing Wu's voice, no matter where the Overlord is, he will not be an ordinary person. As for the specific identity of the Overlord, I think the Overlord would like to tell you personally. Yiqing Luo's eyes moved slightly. She was naturally clear. Dmo Xian was absolutely not an ordinary person. Even in the upper realm. His status, his identity, were all revered. Thinking of this, Yiqing Luo felt that the gap between her and Dmo Xian was getting bigger and bigger. She even said that she wanted to be on par with Dmo Xian. Today, she couldn't even head to the upper realm. Xiaoqing Luo, what's with this pitiful expression? A hand poked Yiqing Luo's head hard. Yiqing Luo sucked in a breath of cold air in pain, hugged her head and raised her head. Junqing Wu looked at her without blinking, her slender brows raised high. Isn't it just a man not by your side? The Overlord is not seducing other women outside, not abandoning you, not abandoning you. What nonsense are you thinking about in this brain of yours? Junqing Wu, who had always been cold and aloof, now put on an earnest and well-intentioned look. But it made Yiqing Luo feel refreshed and laughed out loud. She revealed the same cheeky smile from before. Xiao Wuwu, you're really trying your best to persuade me to pull myself together. Seeing that Xiao Wuwu is so worried about me, I'll forget about Xian and all that. Shoo shoo shoo, I am not worried about you, I am just fulfilling my promise to the Overlord. Junqing Wu pushed Yiqing Luo away with a look of disgust. But Yiqing Luo regained her smile. Junqing Wu finally heaved a sigh of relief. Yiqing Luo didn't miss Junqing Wu's relaxed expression as she smiled sweetly. I know, there's a huge disparity between Xian and me. Those who know Xian, all feel that. I'm not worthy of Xian, however, Xian chose me. Regardless of whether I was worthy or not, the person Xian loved was me. Even if it's for Xian. I will work hard to make myself stronger, work hard to be able to keep up with Xian's footsteps, work hard to make everyone recognize my qualifications to be by Xian's side. Seeing that Yiqing Luo's emotions had returned back to her confident and flamboyant self, Junqing Wu looked at Kitty Li, who was sitting at the side and chewing on a biscuit. Alright, you found out more or less about Dizun. Now, tell me, what scheme did you and Kitty Li plan? How is this a scheme? Yiqing Luo put on a shy look as she patted Junqing Wu's shoulder. It's just a small prank, wait till daybreak, I'll bring you to watch a good show. Your smile is so sinister, who would believe you if you said it wasn't a scheme? Junqing Wu rolled her eyes. Who would believe that? Yiqing Luo turned to look at Kitty Li. Kitty, do you believe it? Chapter 2441. The next day. It wasn't even 5:00 in the morning when Peach scuttled into Yiqing Luo's room and actually woke Yiqing Luo, Li Mao, and the rest up. Qing Luo, something big has happened. Peach pressed her hands on Yiqing Luo's shoulders and pressed hard. Do you know, there are more than 10 black-robed men's corpses hanging at the entrance of the Battle King's residence. Yiqing Luo yawned. I know. Ha! Peach was stunned, she had just received the news and Qing Luo knew about it so quickly. Li Mao rubbed her sleepy eyes. Mao knows too. Peach immediately released Yiqing Luo's shoulders with a frustrated look and took a few steps back. You. How did you know before me? Jun Qingwu was already dressed neatly and leaned lazily against the door. The goods show you were talking about, is it this one? Yiqing Luo nodded with a smile. Isn't this show exciting? Jun Qingwu arrogantly rolled her eyes at her. Peach then seemed to understand the meaning in their words. You mean this matter is done by you? Yiqing Luo shook her head. No. Peach heaved a sigh of relief and patted her chest. I knew it. How could such a thing happen under the nose of the 3,000 peach blossoms? I don't even know. Before she could finish her words, Peach felt her wrist being grabbed by something. Peach lowered her head and met with a pair of watery eyes. Her heart warmed. Mao Mao, what's the matter? Kitty Lee tilted her head, tugged at her sleeve, and said very honestly, the thing you said, it was Kitty who did it. Peach was like a bolt of lightning. She looked like she had suffered a serious blow as her delicate body swayed and fell backwards. You actually hid it from me and did such a big thing. If it was done by Yiqing Luo, she could still comfort herself a little. After all, Yiqing Luo was a pervert. What Yiqing Luo did, it was natural that the 3,000 peach blossoms had no inkling. But this matter was actually done by Li Mao. Peach expressed that she had suffered a huge blow. Peach, have you been hooking up with some handsome young man recently? They don't even care about the 3,000 peach blossoms anymore. Yiqing Luo stood up lazily as she raised her hand and patted Peach's shoulder. The news that the Battle King's manor had sent soldiers to hunt me down, you actually haven't received it till now. TSK, looks like General Battle King is really on guard against your 3,000 peach blossoms. Peach covered her face and screamed, what handsome young man. The fact that I fell for Jean Z means that I'm not someone who looks at appearances. How could I be seduced by a pretty boy? I'll go investigate the warlord's mansion right now. With that, Peach ran out with a thunderous look on her face. Wait. Yiqing Luo was tickled by Peach's actions as she called out to him, help me investigate on the South Continent's young matriarch, his real motive for coming to the North Continent, and Bu family village, as well as the Miao tribe's ancient goo worm. Peach stared at her helplessly. You're really rude. After all, I am your idol. Yiqing Luo nodded her head and smiled. Peach clenched her fists and gritted her teeth. Consider it that I've fallen into your hands. Saying that, she turned around angrily and left the room. Yiqing Luo waved her hand behind her back and laughed loudly. Little Peach, thank you. Peach left even faster. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.